jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, that was swell. Now let's go to town.
You're listening to the Mystic Menagerie Podcast, your regular descent into the world of alternative entertainment, art, and culture. Bolt the door, light the fire, and pour yourself a glass of Virgin Rouge, and let your hosts, Dan Baines and Lord Freddie Valentine, guide you through the Stygian depths of your darkest delights. Warning. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the Mystic Menagerie Podcast. This is episode 4 and today is the 29th of December 2014 and this is our final show of the year. And joining me today is my co-host Freddie Valentine.
Hello.
And our special guest, Paul Bell, or Paul Voodini as he's known in the bizarre circles. How are you, Paul?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us at the Mystic Menagerie Mansion this cold winter's day.
That's right. We've got a good fire going.
Yeah, you found us okay?
Yes, got a little bit lost down by the village, but some of the locals pointed me in the right direction.
Oh, that's good.
They said to get here before it got dark, so I hurried along.
Well, so they usually eat you if you get there. If you come after dark, you'd actually be in a soup tonight. So it's good that you made it here.
Yes, that kind of type.
Yeah.
They turn to vampires at around 11 o'clock usually, just when the shops close.
Yeah, when the off-license shuts.
The off-license shuts, yeah. They turn to vampires, you know, and then start to take people up on the hill. So you're here safe and sound in the Mystic Menagerie Mansion, so that's most important of all.
Absolutely.
Well, a lot of people on Facebook, when we posted an image of the Mystic Menagerie Mansion, were actually trying to locate it on a map. But
yes.
you're definitely not going to find it. It's off the beaten track, and you'll only really get here if you get mine and Freddie's exact directions. Otherwise, you really will end up in
get lost in the mists of time and space.
Exactly. So we're sat by the fire now. You've got enough brandy and mince pies there?
Yes, a couple of mince pies and a nice full glass of brandy. So I'm set for the day, me. Good,
yeah. Me and Freddie are stuffed. We've kind of overdone it a bit this month, haven't we, mate?
It's been too much, yeah. Do you know what I mean? With the festivities at the end of the year, and also, do you know what I mean? We celebrate some very strange things which around this time of year, which we'll talk about later in the show. So we've been, overindulging. There's a lot of mass celebrations.
It is the time for excess, and I'm certainly feeling it around the waistline anyway at the moment. And we've got quite a fun-packed show today. Obviously, with Paul in the third chair with us, we're going to be picking his brains on things he's been up to and things he's going to be up to in the coming year.
Definitely, and there's quite a lot going on as well. Do you know what I mean? We can talk about. I mean, with the podcast, we're very happy so far with the reception that we've had from it, and the listener figures are very good. So we'd like to thank everybody who has listened to the previous shows. And thank you for listening today. Continue to listen because we've got so much coming ahead over the coming year. We're just starting to get into our stride, aren't we, Dan, really?
We are, yeah. I mean, the listener figures are unbelievable. I've been monitoring the amount of hits we've been getting on the website and, the amount of people who are tuning in and listening to the podcast. And it's just growing exponentially. We're on episode 4 now. In terms of if we was publishing the magazine, it would take us best part of a year to put out 4 issues of the magazine, and we've put out 4 podcasts in the space of probably 2 months.
Yeah, and it's easy to do, it's quicker to do, and there's so much we can talk about as well, so much to cover. So, I mean, every episode we've got so many things we're going to discuss. This is like a Christmas special, even though it's now between Christmas and New Year. It's still Christmas really until everyone starts singing Old Lang Syne.
That's it.
It's still Christmas technically, because that was like the most depressing when you were a child. That song meant you're going back to school soon. Your fun is over.
Yeah.
You can put your toys down. it's the fun period has stopped. So we're still in that fun bubble, so that it still is a Christmas show because it's still in that bubble of fun, that festive period.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's a bit of a Christmas gift. If you're a new listener to the Mystic Menagerie podcast, and you may be aware that we had a magazine before, if you go over to lebanonscircle.co.uk, type in if you go to the magazine section under the Mystic Menagerie, at the moment we've got a 50% off offer for all the magazines, and that includes the £35 set of all 13 issues. So if you type in podcast 50 when you check out, you'll get 50% off any copies of the Mystic Menagerie you buy from now up until the end of January.
And that's a big bargain as well, isn't it? It works for bundles as well, doesn't it, Dan?
Yeah, that's it. The bundle, the £35 bundle is at half price. You just need to go to. You can't buy the magazines direct from the the Mystic Menagerie website. You have to go to Lebanon Circle, which is Lebanon as in the place, Lebanon, and circle as in the shape, .co.uk, and just go to the Mystic Menagerie and download them and only pay half price. It's a bargain.
Excellent. It's all there, and also we'll be out soon some exciting Kickstarter projects, Mystic Menagerie Kickstarter projects. We've got a few ideas buzzing about, a few things. So over the year, there's keep listening to the shows. There's some very interesting things coming up here, which I think was going to surprise people. But we are working on one at our first Kickstarter at the moment for the Mystic Menagerie, aren't we, soon?
Yep, we are, and I'll say we're not launching it just yet because we're aware that everyone's a bit skint after Christmas. But me and Freddie have got a few surprises in the pipeline. Some of them quite interesting. One of them, you should get the opportunity to come to London and meet both Freddie and I, and we'll show you some of the the local haunts and the few scary locations. But Paul, you're no stranger to the Kickstarter fund, are you?
That's right. No, I've done a couple, I can't remember exactly how many now, probably about 3, maybe even 4 Kickstarter projects so far over the past perhaps 2 years. And touch wood, they've all been successful. So yes, I've taken advantage of the Kickstarter platform, certainly.
Yeah, it is a bit strange. I've done 2, and I think obviously with you put out books, don't you? You write novels.
That's right. It's to get the funding essentially to enable me to write some of the books that I want to write and to get them written down. And in a way, I use it almost as the old, which a lot of people who are listening to this podcast will remember and know well, the old pre-order style of purchasing magic and magic books. And it's a way for a creator to actually get the funds in their pocket that enables them to go forward and create something that they're passionate about.
It is. It's a bit of a minefield. It's quite dangerous, though. I mean, if you're a Kickstarter, if it's not planned and executed correctly, can basically cripple you as a business or as an individual, can't it?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, if you're expecting it to be a success and relying on that money coming in, and then it isn't a success, then obviously that's a huge pitfall and something to watch out for. And you can look on Kickstarter and find any number of projects that have started, people imagining that all you have to do is start a Kickstarter project and people will back it, and they've got no backers, they've raised no funds, and so yes, you can't just approach it thinking it's a surefire winner. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know your market. You have to be able to market it to who are the people who are going to invest in you. What are they expecting? Once you've started the Kickstarter project, that really is the start of it. Then you have to market it. You have to get the word out. You have to get people to understand what you're trying to do and get them to invest their money in you, because at the end of the day, people aren't going to throw their money away. No.
And I think, I've never made any money from a Kickstarter project. I've made enough money to back the project and get the project out the door, but I've never made any profit from it. It's literally...
No, that's right.
In fact, if anything, I've lost money, but I've managed to recoup it in selling the end product, a few months down the line. And once it gets released to the public, that's when you start recouping the money. But
that's right.
I think it warrants a whole feature on the show itself, especially because, there's more magic Kickstarter projects coming out, but if you don't do it correctly, you can really,
you
screw
can really
yourself
mess
over.
up.
But
especially when you start offering add-ons, extra goodies that people will get if they invest in you.
Yeah.
And you see all these thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars that people have raised, and you think, wow, they're raking it in. But, at the end of the day, they've got to pay for all of this stuff to be made, to be manufactured. They've got to pay for it to be shipped out, posted out. And, you can see how people can really almost, bankrupt themselves by having a successful Kickstarter project, because all of that money gets eaten up in actually delivering what people have promised.
I think that's what's going to be good with the one Freddie and I are going to do, because me and Freddie have definitely discussed the fact that there will be a physical reward. However, it's mainly going to be things we can email to people, or actually physically be there to meet and greet people. Ain't that right, Freddie?
Definitely, we're keeping it more straightforward, really, at the moment, because what we do is, it's obviously, we're running this podcast, and we obviously financing the show. But we want to give people some rewards, people that are dedicated listeners, almost like sponsors as such. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like they're buying shares in it, almost. It's that kind of thing. Yeah. So by sponsoring it, they receive things that other listeners don't. And there's certain things that, like a project where, like Dan mentioned before, about meeting myself and Dan and visiting some of the sort of strange places around London. That's going to be sort of an opportunity, which won't happen very often, because both Dan and I are usually quite busy and stuff like that, and I'm fairly reclusive. So sort of to meet us and to go around, that's going to be a real fun thing. So a certain number of people will be able to attend that. So that's going to be a really good event, I sense. Yeah.
I think if people have got enough notice about an event like that, it'd be like the Mystic Menagerie podcast Bazaar Day Out or something, and for a small fee, come to London and we'll take you to all the Jack the Ripper sites, the Royal London where the Elephant Man was, the Sherlock Holmes Museum, the Welcome Collection, and the Hunterian Collection. So you want to
Blind Beggar Pub.
Yeah, that's it. Lots of, there's so much to see, and as yourself, Paul, you've done seances in London as well, haven't you? So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, I know London well. I used to do the Jack the Ripper seance in London. Yeah. I've been on the Sherlock Holmes tour myself. And yes, the whole East End, the Whitechapel, Spitalfields thing is very much my thing.
Yeah. Now, some of the listeners might be wondering why Paul sounds a little bit odd for saying he's meant to be at the Mystic Menagerie Mansion. But Paul is such a devoted member of the dark arts. He actually likes to lie in a coffin while he does his interviews. So he's actually on the floor between me and Freddie in a coffin by the fireplace with the lid shut. So it makes him sound a little bit like he's possibly in a different part of the country.
It's nice and cosy in here. It's lovely.
Well, yeah, you did request one, and Freddie went down into the crypt and found a really comfortable one for you. So it just makes you sound a little bit, far away.
Yeah, I just wish you'd taken that skeleton out of it first. That's all.
You wanted.
The Toya used to sleep in a coffin. That's the same coffin that Toya used to sleep in. You're in there right now, Paul.
Toya.
Yeah, that's why it's a bit cramped.
Toya Wilcox.
Right. Yeah, she used to sleep in a coffin.
All right, okay. And obviously, Freddie's got his budgie as well, as usual.
Yeah, he's here in the background, making some sounds and joining in.
Yeah, I've got my raven with me. And Paul's got his coffin. So we're all set for a fun-packed show here on the Mystic Menagerie podcast. So I think we're going to kick off, and we're going to go into the first section, which is My Bizarre Life.
Welcome to the madhouse, where lunacy lives, fear lurks, and death waits. Madhouse.
Right, welcome back to the Mystic Menagerie podcast. Right, Freddie, as far as I know, you're a full-time psychic, so this must be your busiest time of year.
It's been very busy for me, actually, because there's been so many readings around as well. People want readings for the next year and what's coming up for 2015. And also around Christmas, a lot of people have stressful situations with family and stuff like this. There's a lot of readings about those kinds of things. Plus, also I had a big seance earlier in December. Paul came along to that as well, and also been busy with cabaret, because I do cabaret work as well. So I've been sort of like around London cabaret clubs singing Christmas songs of Holly Blue. So that's been quite hectic as well.
You got a show tonight, haven't you?
I've got one tonight. Yes, our own show actually. It's Freddie and Holly's Kids Christmas, and this is at a place called The Attic in Hackney. It's a really good venue actually. It's above a cinema.
Okay.
So there's a cinema below, and I thought, maybe if I get there on time, I could watch Paddington beforehand or something like this, and then go up and do a show. But we've got a great lineup. We've got Voodoo Mick on there, who's up. He's a psychic entertainer, and a few other people. We've got comedians, jugglers, mind readers, magic, the whole thing. So it's a proper variety show. So I'm doing that tonight. So that's quite hectic. And after that, I can take a bit of a breather.
Yeah. Ah, good. Bit of a fun-packed night then.
Yeah, it's going to be very busy, very very late night, but it's always fun these nights. It's cabaret night, so it's good fun to do.
So when you do your psychic readings, obviously for the coming 12 months, have you got like a special reading that you actually give that forecasts the whole year, or do people just ask particular things?
Well, I do a special one which I offer people, because I have a lot of people, I readings by email. They email and I email them back. And one of the readings that I do is a forecast, a 12-month forecast. And I only do these readings in December. For the month of December, these readings are on offer, but after that, the rest of the year, I don't do them. Okay. And what it is, it's a card. I pull a card out of the tarot deck for each to symbolise each month of the year. So it's a 12-card reading. So it gets a full 12-month reading with 12 cards, and I offer that in December. So I've had quite a lot of those to do. Yeah,
I bet. Excellent. Cool. Anything else on the bizarre front? Did you get any bizarre gifts over Christmas at all?
Not as such, really. Nothing that strange. You know, I always expect people to sort of, to bring me sort of mummified human remains and body parts and stuff like that. But that tends to be stuff that I seek out myself. So it's been quite a non-bizarre, apart from the early part of December where I was doing a lot of the seance work and stuff like this. It's been quite quiet, but I've got a lot of bizarre stuff ahead next year. I'm very busy with seances and other workshops that I'm doing as well. So right until September we're booked.
Wow. Okay.
So I've already got this next year is very, very busy for me. I'm working with somebody else who does workshops and seances as well. So we're chock booked right until September. So it's going to be quite a mad year, I think, 2015, a busy one.
Excellent. Sounds good. What about you, Paul? What bizarre antics have you been up to this festive season?
Well, as Freddie said, I attended his seance night. Went down there, and Voodoo Mick was there as well. And Freddie was our gracious host, and we had mince pies and mulled wine.
More?
And yes, and communicated with the spirits. So yes, we had a really fun night. Apart from that, I got a Darth Vader cup for Christmas, a Darth Vader mug, which was
okay.
But that's about as bizarre as it got.
Really? Okay. So no terrifying gifts or.
No.
I think one thing I find is that most normal people, like i.e. relatives and family, we tend to be obviously the black sheep of our families. Yeah,
that's right.
Only my wife ever gets it, correct. Yeah. Actually, my brother does as well. My brother bought me a half a stuffed mole, which was nailed to a plaque. So he always gets it right. He just buys me bad taxidermy or animal parts or something. So yeah, but I didn't really get anything bizarre this year either, apart from the mole. Last year I got a human skull, which was pretty good, but. Yeah, this year it was mainly, as usual, all about the kids. I think the emphasis was on that, and
yeah, that's right.
I think Freddie, hit the nail on the head with, if we want anything strange throughout the year, we know what we were like, and we go and get it ourselves.
That's right. Yes, just go out and buy it for yourself, and you know it's going to be the right thing, then, don't you?
That's it. Yeah, I did watch a bit of the ghost story, the haunting of Radbrook.
Oh, that was on. Was it last night?
Yeah, night before. Yeah,
night before. Yeah. What was it like? I considered watching it, but didn't.
It was good. It was. It looked quite eerie. I only sort of watched about 20 minutes of it, but I'm going to go back and watch it on a Channel 5 catch up, I think. But it had that proper Christmas cold, eerie feel. Had a bit of. I think it was a bit Lovecraftian. It had a house where rituals had been performed in the past, and basically I think a man sacrificed his wife, and then his wife's ghost came back and haunted him to the point he committed suicide. That's the background story from what I could gather. But there was a bit where he was giving a bit of a sensual massage, but he cut his hand and was like squeezing blood out of his hand and massaging it into a back, and it just made me, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I'd just eaten a bit too much Stollen, and I was feeling it made me feel a bit queasy, to be honest. I had to turn over and put Raiders of the Lost Ark in instead.
There's not much creepy stuff at Christmas anymore. They used to have these ghost stories, so they're quite rare. I mean, to me, the most horrifying thing this Christmas was Mrs. Brown's Boys and the fact that it's so popular. That's what I found the most frightening of all.
That is pretty disturbing.
People find it entertaining. So that's quite scary. That's a bit like a invasion of the body snatchers kind of scenario, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's I mean, the BBC used to do a regular ghost story for Christmas. And I think they've knocked it on the head.
Yes, they used to do. At one time they did a whole series, didn't they? Yeah, I remember them doing a whole series of them. Was it Lovecraft or I can't remember who it was, but it was But they certainly used to do ghost stories at Christmas on a regular basis.
Yeah, they did The Signalman by was it Charles Dickens, The Signalman, about the ghost who waves the lamp at the entrance to the train tunnel.
Yes, that's another one. Yeah.
Also, M.R. James.
I remember. Yeah, there was a whole season of M.R. James.
Yeah, Whistle and
on Christmas.
Yeah, Whistle and I'll Come to You or something. I probably got the title wrong, but yeah, my brain's fried. But you just don't get it anymore. The spooky emphasis of Christmas has gone. It's all
all tinsel and
PlayStations and tinsel.
Yeah.
There was a thing a while ago where BBC Two, I think, did these short. They were like spooky poems at Christmas, and like there were 5-minute things that they put about 10 years ago, actually, I think. And a mate of mine, he was in one of them because he was like a stand-up comedian, quite an offensive one. But he was playing like this chavvy dad in there, and like this ghost. It's like a Scrooge type thing where this chavvy dad sort of learnt the error of his ways. And it's like a poem recited, and he was acting out. It's sort of silent, so he didn't get the full speaking part fee. But he was in that, yeah. So there were sort of like 5-minute long ones.
Yeah. It's it just seems to have the spookiness seems to have tailed off a bit, which is a bit of a shame. But that's good because we've got that corner covered on the podcast,
definitely.
So we can bring a bit of Christmas festive spookiness back into people's lives with a bit of luck.
Definitely. Yeah. And Paul, about what you've been doing, about the books you've been writing, if people don't know about them, give them a bit of background on what sort of novels you've been writing, if they are.
Over the past, perhaps, year, 18 months, I've tried to move away a little bit from writing and performing in the sort of bizarre and mentalism worlds. And I've always wanted to be a writer, a professional novelist. And so I decided to take the plunge and really give it a good go. So over the past 18 months, I've written 2 books. First one, what is called Miss Katie Bell, Victorian Vampire, and is available on Amazon if you just search for it. And the second one I've just completed, which was funded by a Kickstarter project, it's a Victorian vampire story set in London and based around a set of lesbian vampires, for want of a better phrase.
What more could you want?
The latest one is called Homes of the Baskervilles, and so all of the characters are not based upon Sherlock Holmes world, but they take the names from the Sherlock Holmes world, and the characters are really turned on their heads. So Moriarty not only becomes a female vampire, she's the private detective or the consulting detective. Sherlock Holmes and Mycroft Holmes are the baddies, and the heroine of our tale is Irene Adler, who gets turned into a vampire and ends up living in Spitalfields with a group of lesbian vampires. It's not the first one, Miss Katie Bell, is quite kinky in parts.
Right.
The latest one isn't quite so. But what I'm hoping to do is collect them all together. Collect those 2 stories together, add a third story, and put them all together into one big collection.
Okay.
Probably by the middle of next year, that will be called The Vampire Girls of Victorian London. And then I'm going to really spend some time pushing that, going around conventions, fantasy conventions, comic conventions, trying to promote them and get the word out there. Because the trouble is, I naively went into this enterprise thinking, well, I've been reasonably successful in the bizarre and mentalism world, and the books that I've written in that arena have been well received and sell quite well. And I thought, and the mentalism world, the bizarre world, is quite a small niche. Yeah. I thought there's millions of people out there who read fantasy novels and read vampire novels and read horror novels who would be interested in what I want to write. But of course, the trouble is, once you get out into that market, there's so much noise these days. There's so many people putting books out via Amazon and via Lulu, etc. That it's very difficult to get your voice heard. It's difficult to get your head above the parapet for people to take notice of you.
It is.
So I'm going to spend some time this coming year, trying to get the word out so people can hear about my books and hopefully purchase them.
Yeah.
I've approached several people that I know who are already working in that arena, trying to get help and advice. But these people are busy. They've got their own lives and careers to look after, and the last thing they want to do is spend time sort of helping anybody else. So really, I want to spend the next 12 months promoting that side of my work and just seeing where it goes. I've given myself 12 months, and if this time next year I'm not a successful novelist, expect to receive an email telling you all about my new PDF that's been released.
Or acting even. Because I thought that if you wouldn't want to capitalise and get your name in there, if you want to go for the cheap route, you could mix like the sauciness with the sort of vampire side of it and call it 50 Shades of Red.
You just read my mind, Freddie. I was thinking of that as well, 50 Shades of Red.
I think, because I had a brainwave and it suddenly hit me, and I thought, 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades of Black, 50 Shades of Red, they're different connotations. But I think there is a book out there, and I'm not sure if it's called 50 Shades of Red or 50 Shades of Black, but it's somebody's already stolen that idea.
What about 50 Shades of Death?
Yeah. Yes, well, that's good, yes.
What about Debbie does Highgate?
Yes.
What about Mr. Brown's Vampire Boys?
Yeah. You got so really much mileage.
Yes, well, there is. I mean, who wouldn't be interested in Victorian lesbian vampires? That's what I want to know. Who wouldn't buy that? If you buy the Kindle edition for like 99p, it's got to be worth 99p of anybody's money, hasn't it?
Everyone loves vampires. I mean, everyone loves vampires and everyone loves lesbians. Even women love lesbians as much as men.
I'm led to believe.
Yeah, definitely. We know what two subjects are forefront of your mind, anyway, Paul.
That's right. Essentially, I read a book called Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which is a classic book.
It was televised, wasn't it, that as well, I think? They did a BBC drama of it?
Yeah, BBC did a 2-part drama, maybe even 3-part, but yes, the BBC adapted it. And essentially, all I've been doing for the past 18 months is rewriting Tipping the Velvet, but putting vampires in there. I
bet if someone was to look under your bed, it's just like basically piled high with Bram Stoker and copies of Razzle.
The best of both worlds.
It's funny. Talking lesbian vampires, there was an Italian film director called Jess Franco, and in the early 70s he had a film called Vampiros Lesbos. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Yes.
Before.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah, and the soundtrack is one of the most amazing. It's like funky wah-wah guitars and everything on it. And years ago I had a band, and we were like a big band, brass section, there's like 15 people in it, and we used to play sort of cheesy existing cabaret stuff. And we used to play excerpts from the Vampire Lesbos soundtrack.
Wow.
Live, and it always went down really well. But no one would believe where it had come from. This funky music. They thought it was some sort of obscure Parliament or funkadelic track, but it's actually from a 1970s Italian lesbian vampire film.
Might stick a bit of an extract. I can't even spit it out. We might even stick a bit of an extract from that in, because I think I've got it at this end amongst my my dodgy CD collection. I remember the soundtrack, it's got like a man growling and stuff in the background and sort of some talking and lots of
that's right.
Echo. Yeah, there's lots of effects and stuff. The
first track's the best ones on it. It's got some really great guitar on it.
Is it called The Lion and the Lion and the something?
I've got it here somewhere,
Yeah.
Right, it's one of my favourite soundtracks. It's a very good piece of music. If you haven't heard that, Paul, that's one. It's right here.
Absolutely, yeah, and of course, vampires and lesbians have gone hand in hand, dating way back to at least the 19th century. One of the first vampire books that was written, a novella, is called Carmilla, and it predates Bram Stoker's Dracula by 25 years. And Carmilla is essentially a story of lesbian seduction by a vampire.
Wow.
And so there's a long tradition of vampirism and lesbianism going hand in hand, and long may it continue.
Yeah. There's also
the latest in the chain.
Sorry, Freddie.
Sorry, and Paul, you're the latest in the chain. You're the one keeping it alive.
That's right. I'm the keeper of the flame.
There was the scene from The Hunger with Susan Sarandon and
right.
Catherine Deneuve. I remember watching that as a mere teenager and wearing it out on the VHS recorder.
Being excited by it.
Well, yeah, you could say that. Probably an understatement.
This scene excites me.
Thing is, though, Susan Sarandon at the filming of The Hunger also had an affair with David Bowie during that film. Right. Yeah.
Apparently, when he's ages and he's really old and he goes about 900, he ages really quickly. Apparently, his son was horrified to see him like that when he turned up at set. He was crying his eyes out.
Ooh, yeah, wow. I mean, it's a good film. It's very, it feels very empty and quiet. I think it conveys the feeling of being a vampire.
Yes.
It seems like a long film, and it's very morose and quiet, and the whole house is empty because obviously there's no point keeping any material objects because, you know, they don't really get any pleasure from them, anything material anymore, do they? Yeah. It's always what they seek is physical pleasure as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. And I think if you're immortal, really you can put everything off till tomorrow. Why bother? Because you know you've got forever. And I always thought tying it in with sort of what's happening today. The more that we combat illness and disease and lengthen life until one day we will, I'm sure, conquer death and everybody can live forever. But then, what's the point of living if you could go out, you could commit murder and think, well, if I get caught, put in prison 20, 25 years, what's that? You know, I'll live forever. Yeah. So that sense of being immortal as a curse rather than a blessing.
Exactly. In the words of Freddie Mercury, he wants to live forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There can be only one.
Yes, please don't make a second.
Or a series.
Yes, or a series.
Yeah, I mean the whole what was it? The Highlander movies, wasn't it? I mean, essentially the tale of a vampire again, but I can't remember how he actually gained immortality though. Was it?
No, I think that you were just born that. You were one. You know, so many people were born that way. It was the natural thing. I don't think there was any process of them turning into an immortal. I think they were born that way, and because he discovered he was living in the Scottish village, wasn't he? And they had a fight with another Scottish village, and he should have died. He got stabbed by a sword, but he lived. Yeah. And up to that point, he had no idea that he was immortal. It was just when he didn't die from his injuries that he realised he was immortal, and everybody around him thought he was cursed by the devil, and they kicked him out of the village, didn't they?
Yeah, and there's something in it called the quickening, wasn't there?
Yeah.
There's a
of course, Sean Connery is, of course, the whole Highlander thing set among the clans of the Highlands, and they get Sean Connery in and make him Spanish. It's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
Very strange, yeah. That's Hollywood for you.
Yes.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, you've also had a new book out as well, haven't you, Freddie? You forgot to mention in Your Bizarre Life. Didn't you release a book a few days ago?
Yeah, it's called Dark Exhibitions. It's about people that want to exhibit stuff. Do you know what I mean? How to exhibit it. Some people collect weird items and don't know how to present it to the public or how to exhibit it. And it's basically sort of a start-up guide and how to do that and the sort of places you can do it, how to present them. Do you know what I mean? And how to make it an event rather than just here's a few bits and pieces to look at, and how to build it up. You know, how to create your own museum. Okay,
cool. And that's available also. You can buy that on the Lebanon Circle site, and you can also get it via anywhere on your end. Is it Lulu?
Not on Lulu. No, it's only from Lebanon Circle at the moment, so it's exclusive at this present time.
Cool. Okay, cool. So that's £20 as well, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. So if anyone's got like oddities or weird items, or they're looking around antique shops and finding strange things, how to exhibit them or present them, you know, in a sort of museum style, and sort of a bit of a Ripley's kind of way of doing things, you know. So and people do like looking at stuff like that, you know. I mean, some performers think they go out there and they do tricks or whatever, but people don't really. They're happy looking at weird things, you know. I'm happy looking at weird things, and a lot of people are, you know.
Yeah. So, have you got any weird exhibits, Paul? I imagine your place to be like Forbidden Planet inside. You know, the shop. It's just basically action figures nailed to the wall and comics.
I've got the Jack the Ripper set that you put out. I've got that, and I've got a few bits from Alchemy Moon. Apart from that, I've got a lot of superhero and science fiction based things. Scooby-Doo models on display. Okay. But as well, you know, I've got two kids, so there's a lot of their stuff around. There's photos of them at Harry Potter World. So it's a bit of a real mix of different things. But luckily, the kids are into very similar things to me as well. They're into Harry Potter. Yeah. And so we have shared interests, and Marvel, of course. My son's really into Marvel as well.
Yeah, I don't think. My kids are exactly the same. Everything I buy now, I see it as an investment because I know they're going to be into it in about 5 or 6 years' time. But
yeah, that's right.
We've got every single Marvel costume you can imagine. We've got boxes of figures everywhere, and I'll put my hands up and say I probably enjoyed buying them and get more enjoyment out of them than what they do at the moment. But that's the perks of being a geeky dad, I suppose.
That's right, absolutely.
I was going to say as well, this is one for Freddie, definitely. I was watching Carry On Camping the other day. And did you know Harry Potter was in that?
Well, the Danny Radcliffe?
No, not the Danny Radcliffe one, but the character Harry Potter is in Carry On Camping.
That's what's his name? Peter Potter. That's Terry Scott's character, isn't it?
Terry Scott's missus is called Harry Potter.
Harriet Potter, yeah, Harriet Potter, and it's Harry Potter, yeah, and Peter Potter, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, because there's that scene where they've got Charles Hawtrey in the tent, and they're all sort of getting undressed, but getting into each other's clothes at the same time.
That's right, and that's a great scene, and that's all filmed right near where I live. The place where the camping shop is, do you remember where, at the start, Charles Hawtrey goes in the camping shop, and asks about sticking the pole up and all that?
Yeah.
That's in Maidenhead High Street.
All right, okay.
And it's another shop now. I think it's an electrical shop now. I think it is, but it used to be that camping shop was there for years.
Yeah.
And around the corner from that, there's the actual Maidenhead Town Hall, which was the hospital in the Carry On films, and also in Carry On behind it was the college. So you can actually walk past the actual hospital Carry On films, down the street where Sid and Bernie walked to go to the camping shop, and go in the shop where Charles Hawtrey was inside the tent. So it's all right local to me.
Excellent. The Carry On Screaming was on straight after it as well. So
that's a classic, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good afternoon of the kids don't really get it, and my wife's South African, so she doesn't get Carry On humour. But I just sat there pissing myself for the whole afternoon drinking mulled cider, so I enjoyed it.
You can't beat them. Yeah, I mean, I tried to get some American friends into Carry On films because they're asking about British humour and stuff like that, and obviously Monty Python, Full Monty, anything that Monty guy does is good. And I said, well, check out some Carry On films, and they chose Columbus.
Oh no! Jeez, I saw that at the cinema.
I did as well. I was so disappointed. You know what I mean? But then no, I was expecting. Maybe I expected the ghost of Charles Hawtrey to be in it, or Kenneth Williams to make an appearance. But yeah, that's the one they watched, and that's not a very good representation, is it?
It's not. No.
Carry On Screaming is one of my favourite films of all time. I really love Carry On Screaming.
It's a masterpiece. The theme tune's great as well. The rock and roll song at the start. The Carry On Screaming. Yeah. That's really good, but it's a great film. I remember watching that as a kid quite a lot as well, and it's sort of like, it was a comedy. It's almost like a horror film as well, because it had that feel to it.
Yeah, some of the best early, what supposedly comedy horror films have got that eerie angle to them. Bob Hope's Cat and the Canary, for instance. Although it's funny, there is an edge to it that you think when you watch it, you think, it is actually a little bit spooky. And I love the Abbott and Costello ones of Abbott and Costello monster movies as well. They were great.
Yeah,
I think that's true. I think the reason why is because in real life, people do joke about. I mean, if you were in a horrible situation or something like that, people would make jokes to alleviate the tension. Whereas in a lot of Hollywood films, people are very serious, very straight, and they're only saying lines that are either to do with the plot or they're screaming. Whereas in real life, you probably would joke about. You would have that sort of conversation with people. You try to lighten the mood. So that's probably why they've got a bit of a sort of more realistic feel, I suppose, in some ways to proper horror films.
I think it's a very British thing, though, to make light of a bad situation. I mean, you go back through like World War One and World War Two. There seems to be a very, like you've got things like It Ain't Half Hot Mum and stuff. You've got you've got all this shit happening around you, yet people, especially I would say the British, seem to have a kind of a comedy slant to it to soften the blow of how terrible the situation they are in is.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, last time when we mentioned with Reese about the Witchcraft Museum in Cornwall, Boscastle.
Yes.
In the voodoo doll section that he mentioned, there's actually Hitler voodoo dolls, which you could buy at the time and stick pins in during the war.
In the hope it might do something to him.
Yeah, but they were done like a real cartoony sort of faces. They weren't like serious looking dolls.
No.
They're almost like toys. Like imagine like a plush toy of Hitler, but you can stick pins in it. It's that kind of thing. And that's quite strange. I don't think many other countries would treat it with that such, irreverence, I suppose.
No.
And wasn't there, I don't know how much truth there is in it, but during World War II, during the Blitz, there were, I don't know if they were members of the Golden Dawn or one of the offshoots, but they believed that every night they were conducting supernatural attacks upon Hitler and
that's
helping, the British, the Americans hadn't joined during the Battle of Britain, had they? So it was just Britain, wasn't it, who was sort of the last bastion of freedom, holding off against Hitler's hordes. And they every night they would perform rituals and spells, and do astral projection, see themselves flying in the air, attacking the Messerschmitts and helping the Spitfires to be victorious. So
that's right.
yeah.
There's a New Forest Witches, wasn't it? Down south. It was New Forest Witches.
That's right.
Gerald Gardner. And his thought they were doing that. Yeah, because I've been to the place where they supposedly conducted that. Because there's a town nearby. What's a village? There's a village nearby in the New Forest, and it's all witchy, and there's all witchcraft shops there, and even the pub is witch themed, and it's all around that area.
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah.
I mean, it's where the whole in World War II. It's where the whole thing about gremlins came from, isn't it? Fighter pilots reported seeing creatures actually on the aircraft, sort of ripping engines apart, and it's where the there's a gremlin in the works and all that type of thing comes from.
The word gremlin wasn't used, was it, prior to World War II?
It wasn't, no. And it came
a
from
word that was invented,
and it came from what was supposedly physical sightings of creatures sabotaging aircraft in flight. So.
Yeah.
If you tie that in with the witchcraft element of witches projecting themselves or maybe some form of familiar or creature onto an airplane in order to tear it apart and stuff, it kind of fits in really well. It's a really nice concept.
And of course, there's a whole occult angle to the Nazi Party as well. That they were conducting their own experiments, which of course led to the Indiana Jones films. The fact that they were searching for the Spear of Destiny and the Holy Grail, etc., as ways of and to use them as weapons. In what they saw was some sort of holy war, I suppose.
The beginning of Hellboy probably represents the best representation of that, where they're in that. I think it's meant to be Roslyn Chapel in Scotland, where they're performing that ritual with Rasputin, and they open that portal, and one of the lamps sort of goes through the portal, and you see it float past this huge Lovecraftian tentacled creature. It's a really great part of the film, that is, and the best way of I think I've seen of them tying in the Nazi interest into the occult. And of course, Britain had to counteract that research, and there is rumours, and I'm pretty sure, I think it's pretty official, that Britain did have their own, as part of the security services, had an occult research department.
Yes, yeah.
So I'd love to have a dig around in those files and see what they found out. But
it'd be fascinating.
Yeah,
Crowley was supposed to be involved, wasn't he? At one point, there's rumours that he was involved in British intelligence as well. But the real story was Helen Duncan, the medium.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Because she, during the war, they actually arrested her, didn't they, and imprisoned her under the Witchcraft Act.
Did she foretell? She told somebody that her son had died in one of the Royal Navy's ships had been sunk, and he died, but the news hadn't been released officially by the British government. So when she was telling this woman that the ship had been sunk, they wanted to know how on earth she had this information. And of course, she said it was Spirit that told her, and they didn't believe that and thought that she must be some sort of spy to have this information.
Yeah,
that's right. There's a great book about her, which I read a few years ago, called Hellish Nell, and it covers all that. So if any listeners want to check more about Helen Duncan, that's a really good book to read because it mentions that.
You're about to enter the backyards and cellars, the dark attics of one man's twisted mind. The mind of Edgar Allan Poe.
I mean, Christmas, this next we're going to talk about here is weird traditions, because Christmas has the traditional things, the nativity and everything else. But around the world, there are some very, and even in the sort of the UK, USA, there's some really weird things happening, and really weird traditions, isn't there, Dad? We've been looking into this.
Yeah, there is. There's some quite new ones, and then there's some that are sort of swept under the carpet, but are gradually finding a revival, such as the Krampus, which is quite a popular one, which over the years is starting to creep back into a Christmas tradition, especially in sort of the UK and America. You wouldn't have seen it a few years ago, but I think now more people are aware of the Krampus than they were before.
And it's surprising there's not been a Krampus film, because it's perfect for a horror film, isn't it?
It is.
And it's like, the Krampus in Italy is one I was fascinated with. It's an Italian folklore character called Befana. I think it's pronounced that, Befana, Befana. And it's an old witch, and she delivers gifts to children She's like a Santa Claus, but she's like a witch.
Okay.
And it's a really creepy figure they have. She's usually in a very bright clothes, but that witch, the sort of the stereotypical picture you see with the hook nose and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like a really horrific looking character. But she apparently visits kids, and if they've been good, she fills their stockings with toys and presents and sweets and stuff like that. If they've been bad, they get coal or dark sweets, like dark candy.
Yeah. Oh,
so
cool.
it's a very strange, and it's kind of I think there's this thing with kids getting different weird things, if they've been bad. It's quite, around Europe particularly, it's quite popular, because someone over in Poland was saying that in the early part of December they leave their shoes outside the house, and if they've been good, they're filled with sweets in the morning. If not, they're filled with twigs. So this is weird. It's a real sort of behave yourself or else kind of attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the whole thing with the Krampus as well was he was almost St. Nicholas's right hand man, and they took a share of the spoil. So St. Nick would reward the kids with presents, while any bad kids he gave to the Krampus, who dragged them all off to hell. Which I think
it's very dramatic and very you'd be bad, you're going to hell.
Well, if you look at some of the Christmas cards from the turn of the century, they are literally pictures of the Krampus pulling a sledge full of screaming kids. And and the
Merry Christmas.
The Christmas cards are terrifying. If you went on Google and just typed in Krampus Christmas cards, it is literally your stereotypical image of the devil, which obviously due to the way Christians painted the devil is a goat-headed or a horned man with goat's legs painted red. And he's got either a sack of children over his back and he's like grinning and marching off into the distance, or he's pulling a sledge full of screaming children away. There's another one of him riding a broomstick as well, which is just full of newborn babies.
Great. Yes.
Now these Krampus parades as well. Have you seen them? They look like the Predator creature, some of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From the film Predator. And they've all smoke around them, stomping down the road, and it's quite horrifying.
It is.
For kids. It's not like an old man.
Behave, isn't it?
But it certainly make you behave. It's not like an old man on a sled waving at you and giving you toys. This is horrific.
But it's like nowadays, children have just got if you don't behave yourself, you're not going to get anything, which isn't much of a deterrent. It's not for my kids anyway. If you tell them Santa's not going to bring them anything, they'll behave for about 5 minutes and then just go batshit crazy again. It doesn't do anything. However, if I told them that some satanic figure was going to come in the night and drag them off to hell, then maybe it would make them behave. But as far as I know, in countries in sort of northern Europe, so I think sort of Prague, the Krampus is still popular. I've been into bars in Prague which are devoted to the Krampus, and there's pictures of him all over the place. You can buy puppets of him, masks, you name it. You can get them alongside your typical Santa tree decorations. It's still a real significant part of folklore in their society. But I think what happened is once the Roman Catholic Church saw people using the Krampus as part of a Christmas tradition, they obviously drove out any idolisation of any satanic figures, and as a result of that, it was lost in history. Once again, Christianity screws it up for everyone, and they get rid of all the fun stuff.
Spoils it for everyone.
Exactly. I mean, the whole thing is quite. I mean, I think Santa Claus itself is quite sinister. I mean, the only other white-haired elderly man who gets close to children by bearing gifts I can think of was Jimmy Savile. And it just seems a bit strange that this man's creeping in the house at night. And the kids aren't actually scared by Santa Claus because he brings them toys.
Yeah.
It's a very strange thing that the fact that this stranger is allowed in your house once a year, and the kids are okay with that. And most kids would be wary of somebody sort of coming in their house. So the whole thing is quite strange. One of the weirdest things I've thought about is a Dutch tradition called Black Peter. Have you heard about this before?
No.
Because we have Santa Claus and his elves, and what they have over in Holland is they're like elves, but they're blacked up. They're done up like black and white minstrels.
Right.
And they're basically the whole faces are painted black, like blackface, like Al Jolson kind of thing. And they go around and give out sweets. They're like Santa's helpers. And over there, it's considered to be fine. In this country or anywhere else, it'd be considered to be very, very offensive. Yeah. And there's a video I think it's on YouTube, where they came over to the UK this year and went around handing out sweets to see what reaction they got from people. and they were just smiling and handing out sweets. But people they were so offended by it, and wanted to hit them because they'd never seen anything as offensive as this. But people from Holland are saying it's nothing because they've grown up with it. It's something they're used to. So that's quite a weird tradition, which would be probably unacceptable in most places.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's a reflection of modern society and political correctness, isn't it? I mean, if you go, obviously in London, if you had for example, in spring, there's the Morris dancers that we have round where I live, and I sort of live in like deepest, darkest Kent, which is still very rural. There's an actual Morris dancer band called All Blacked Up, and they are all blacked up, like, as you say, like Al Jolson, and they do Morris dancing blacked up like that, and no one bats an eyelid. They're advertised in the newspaper, they've got the posters. If you go into Hastings, the posters are around everywhere, and as far as I'm aware, they don't get any grief from the political correctness crew. However, if they were going to go into sort of Leicester Square and do their little all blacked up show, I'm pretty sure they'd probably be stoned, to be honest. Stoned as in things thrown at them, not stoned as in smoking stuff in Leicester Square.
But the thing is, when the Morris dancers black up, or with black beads from Holland, is that supposed to be a representation of Afro-Caribbean people, or is it a representation of something else, coal miners or evil spirits? Surely you can only be offended by it if it's meant to be a portrayal of Afro-Caribbean people rather than a tradition that is based on something else. That has nothing to do with making fun of different cultures or different people, and it's just an expression of either something evil or, like I say, coal miners, when they come out of the pit, they're absolutely, as black as coal. So surely you can only be offended if those Morris dancers are their intention is to make fools or to poke fun at Afro-Caribbean people.
Yeah, I think the political correctness crew, though, nowadays, they grasp out for the nearest reference point. And obviously, if you see someone blacked up, regardless if they're representing a miner or an evil spirit, they just go for the ethnic minority stance, and as a result, it gets sort of banished from society. And again, we lose another part of important
culture and heritage,
culture and folklore. But I think, as I say, there's definitely a subject for another day, and that is how especially British folklore, is either being diluted down with the Americanization of the United Kingdom, and just people just generally forgetting stuff due to technology and new traditions. And look at Black Friday. We never had Black Friday ever. And all of a sudden now it's become an English, Black Friday will always be here going forward. We never had it before. And because of Black Friday, it displaces the amount of sales that people usually get from the traditional Boxing Day sales. Boxing Day sales are down because everyone's gone and spent it all on Black Friday. So we've lost Boxing Day due to the influence of outside forces.
Definitely. And we used to worship things like the Green Man and Pan and that in this country, in a pagan tradition. Now we worship cheap televisions that you can't get rid of the rest of the year.
Yeah.
It's a new god. It's a new god,
Yes.
Things will go full circle, though, and maybe not in our lifetime, but things where people will start getting fed up with the way things are and start reverting back to the old ways. Just look at the Romans and the Dark Ages.
Yes.
I mean, there are some. Sorry, Paul.
I was going to say things, but things do change, and you can imagine in 100 years' time, people sat around complaining that we don't get the Black Friday sales like we used to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, do you remember Black Friday? You don't get that anymore. Now it's sort of, Orange Tuesday or something,
I'm surprised we can call it Black Friday.
So things do change, and things do become new traditions, and I'm sure 200 years from now, or even 100 years from now, people will be sat around bemoaning the fact that, do you remember DVDs? Yeah. Do you remember Black Friday? And do you remember ordering? Do you remember the internet? The internet's not around anymore, is it? So things change. You can't. It's just the way of the world, I'm afraid.
And it'd be weird if you in the future have people like reminiscing, saying, "Oh, you're great. See that Xbox over there? Your great granddaddy killed someone for that Black Friday sales."
That's right. You'll not recognise that, will you? That's what we used to call a computer.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you're getting new traditions now that are quite weird ones, like this recent thing's Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah, Elf on the Shelf. This is the first year I've heard about this. Have you ever heard about it, Paul?
No, that's all new to me. Never heard of it.
The Elf on the Shelf. Go for it, Freddie. Tell him what it is.
This is really strange. The first time I saw it, I go to the Isle of Wight quite frequently for holidays, and there's a shop there called the Christmas Shop, open year all round, and sells Christmas decorations. And we usually buy something in the summer to something odd to hang on our Christmas tree. And there's this box, there's this toy elf and a book in there called The Elf on the Shelf. And I've never seen it before. And the woman shop, it's really popular, she was saying, and for kids and that. And apparently, what you do is you put this elf on a shelf in a kid's bedroom, and he's supposed to watch the kid and report back to Santa whether they're being naughty or nice.
Yeah.
So they have to behave while this elf is in the room, and it moves around the house.
Yeah, you're meant to move it, aren't you? You move it every day, so it appears in a new spot.
Oh, wow.
But this is the thing that I didn't get, you see, because when my wife Monique told me about the Elf on the Shelf, she said it's an elf that you position in the house and it moves every day. And I was like, what sort of wizardry is this? It moves on its own around the house. I thought this has got so much mileage in it for a bizarre routine or to be converted into a trick. An actual a model of an elf that actually moves itself around the house. It's almost like a Big Tracks, but in the form of an elf.
Yes.
But then she said, no, you have to actually just wait till the kid goes to sleep and pick it up and move it to another part of the house. And I was like, oh, God, is that it? And
like all magic tricks, you go, oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Once you know the secret.
All filler, no killer. Definitely on that one.
Yes.
The thing is, I think it's preparing kids for like CCTVs and speed cameras and stuff like that, really.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. You could see it as a reflection of that. Yeah. But then, hasn't Santa or Father Christmas always been omnipotent and able to see every child all the time and know when they've all been bad anyway? Yeah.
Exactly. Jesus is the ultimate speed camera, isn't he?
Jesus is, yes, and God, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
They are for those who believe in it. Otherwise, it's just like you might as well have like King Arthur watching you or something.
I'd rather have King Arthur watching over me.
I think he probably does. He watches me anyway. But
Ooh, Arthur. That's Uncle Arthur you're thinking of.
But this Elf on the Shelf. Did you buy an Elf on the Shelf then, Freddie, or did you?
No, I didn't buy one, and I did think of it. I mean, I did think getting it from my nieces and nephews and stuff like that. If I had it myself, it'd be a bit weird. But I thought, it's a bit creepy, and it could freak a kid out, couldn't it? Because kids can be quite sensitive to stuff like that.
What would happen if you got back in one day and it had moved by itself?
No, that would
be. You saw it. You thought, we didn't leave it on that shelf, did we? And that would be freaky.
That would be, wouldn't it? If it was actually a real elf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the seed of doubt started to enter your mind that it might possibly be real.
Like the Talkie Tina in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was Telly Savalas.
That's right. Yeah, I want to kill you. That could be like that, couldn't it? And it's got that look about it. That there's a certain face in that Talkie Tina. It's sort of like a very strange. And the Elf on the Shelf's got the same sort of look in its eyes that Talkie Tina has, and that's probably what made me think, "Ooh, no." The memories of Twilight Zone probably hit there. But it's a very strange tradition, and I've noticed that it seems to be quite popular over here. I think it's an American invention. But a lot of people on Facebook are putting pictures on there. Their kids have got it in their room, and the elves watching them and stuff like that. So it does seem to be taken off over here, strangely enough. Yeah.
They've got a weird kind of little sideways glance, cheeky face, and really elongated limbs, a bit like the alien at the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The really long one that comes out. Yes. It's a bit really creepy. It's like that, but with like an elf's face on it. And it's not the most pleasant thing in the world. Put it this way, if I was a little kid, I wouldn't want it gazing at me 24 hours a day.
No, absolutely.
It could be quite disturbing. Do you know what I mean? Having something watching you all the time, something sitting there silent watching you. I think that some kids respond to that in a good way, but I think it could disturb some for life, I think.
Yeah, you can imagine laying in bed and sort of staring at it and thinking that thing's watching me and being completely freaked out by it.
Yeah. It's a very odd-looking thing, but but I think it's going to get bigger over here. It seems to be this year a lot of people are getting into that. But then I think it's more traditional in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because like Christmas has become, like I say, everyone says it for years, it's become commercialised, and I think it has in many ways. Like I say, a lot of things like Krampus and all these sort of creepyish things have been sort of taken out of it. And the Elf on the Shelf is sort of a modern creepy thing.
Yeah,
it's modern creepy. There's like a telltale. It's like a kid at school who tell the teacher about everything you do. and he's hanging around with you, and you think you have to be really good in front of this kid because he's going to grass you up. And basically, the off the shelf is a little grass, really. On the shelf.
Yeah.
It won't take long before someone clues up and pulls it down and kicks the crap out of it when no one's looking.
It reminds me of a story. The true story happened to me. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I used to have a gollywog. Remember then, we're not allowed those anymore either.
I'll have to beep the W word out to stay in line with the PC
yes, sorry,
crew.
yes. We had
I'm only joking.
I'm
only joking.
And I had a golly. My mum and dad bought me a golly, and I used to put it in the corner of the room. And I used to have this little rocking chair in my bedroom. And this was, I've got a sister, but I'm 3 years older than my sister. It was before she was born, so I must have been less than 3 years old. And my mum took me into bed, put the golly on the rocking chair in the corner of the room. The next morning, when my mum came into the bedroom, the golly was on the floor with his eyes ripped off. And my mum said to me, what have you done to your golly? You've ruined him. And I said, he was looking at me, and I'd ripped the eyes out. I don't remember it myself, but that's a story of something that actually happened that my parents have told me about.
Yeah, you vicious little git.
I know. Well, he was looking at me. Kill or be killed, I say.
Giving you funny looks. I was actually when I was in the Royal Navy. I was actually electronic warfare, and the slang, the nickname you were given was gollies because we used to jam things. So obviously, jamming missiles and communications, we were called gollies, and we all used to wear the little Robinson's Jam Gollywog badges on our uniform. Yes. And I think in about 1998, maybe 1999, we were told we can't wear them anymore. Even though it was like a major tradition.
Yes.
Basically when the Conqueror came back from the Falklands War, it was flying the skull and crossbones, because that's what you do when you've sunk a ship. You fly the skull and crossbones, and everyone went absolutely ballistic, and how distasteful it was that they're flying the skull and crossbones. But again, tradition that's been brushed under the carpet, which is a big shame.
Yeah.
What about actual traditional things? Do you do anything traditional every year? Is there something you do every year when Christmas comes? Well,
I have a couple of things that I do every year around Christmas time that I like to do. One of them is in 1975, Christmas Day 1975, I had one of the best Christmas presents I've ever received. And it was a Marvel Comics Treasury edition called Giant Superhero Holiday Grab Bag.
Okay.
And it was a special Christmas issue of Marvel Comics, and it had a collection of stories with Marvel superheroes such as Doctor Strange, the Hulk, Spider-Man, etc. That all had a Christmas theme. And I remember receiving this on Christmas Day 1975 and being I'd be 11 years old and being absolutely delighted with it and spending most of Christmas Day reading it. And over the years, I lost it. I lost all my comics over the years. And so a couple of years ago, I decided that I was going to source the comics that I had the fondest memories of on eBay and buy them again. So I had them. And so a few years ago, I managed to get hold of a copy of this 1975 Marvel Christmas edition. What I do now every Christmas Eve is I don't read the whole magazine. There's just one story in particular, a Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. story, a real 1960s spy caper, really, where Nick Fury is in his apartment in New York with a blonde girl having cocktails and listening to Frank Sinatra's Christmas album, and he gets the call in from S.H.I.E.L.D. to say that Hydra are up to something, and he has to leave the girl on the sofa, go off, save the world. And then Christmas Day morning, he returns back to his apartment. The girl is asleep on the sofa, and he wakes her up, and they look over Manhattan as the sun comes up on Christmas morning while they share, a martini cocktail. And I love the story, and it's become a little bit of a tradition now with me to read that story on Christmas Eve in the afternoon, just to almost relive that magic that I had as a child when the first time that I ever read that story. So that's one of the traditions that I try to maintain every year.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think as adults, we seem to spend, especially men anyway, seem to spend a lot of time pursuing the feelings they had as children. And I think magic is a big thing to do with that as well, because you want to feel that you want to be able to see something and have that disbelief or have that feeling of magic or have that special feeling that your comic gives you. But it's like an endless pursuit, though.
It becomes harder as you get older. Of course, you become more cynical. You can't help it. It's the nature of things. You become more cynical as you grow older, and you can sometimes see the truth of things, and some things that are impossible. You think, well, that just cannot be true. So it becomes a more difficult pursuit with the passing of each year. To sort of hold on to that childlike wonder, which is something that we as magicians, mentalists, bizarrists, that is part of our remit. That is what we charge ourselves really to do, is to try and invoke those feelings of wonder and mystery in the people around us, so that just for a moment or two, a minute or two, they are reminded of the magic that they once believed was in the world when they were children.
Exactly.
It's like when the original Star Wars films came out, when people were like kids and watching them. It's like amazing. You thought it was real. You watched them, you were stunned by them and totally immersed in the world. And when the prequels came out, people were just slagging them off. And I thought the reason why is probably because they're 40-year-old men.
Yes, they're not kids anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think they're actually bad films as such. If you watch them, if I was watching them as an 8-year-old, I'd probably think they were fantastic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you watch them through the eyes of a 40-year-old man rather than a 7-year-old child, you're not going to have the same sort of like immersion in it as you are as a child. That's what I think is with these things. And that's why a lot of these things are. I mean, even this new Star Wars one's going to come out. It's going to get a lot of criticism from people who are expecting to feel the same feeling they felt when they were 7 or 8 watching the original film. And that's what I think where a lot of the problem lies. The criticism of those films is not so much in the content itself, but more in the eyes of the person watching it.
Yeah, and I think some films that do spectacularly well that you wouldn't expect to, like perhaps the Blair Witch Project. I think the reason that did so well is that for a moment, grown people believed it was real, and suddenly there was something else in the world beyond the rational, beyond their daily existence. And people, I remember talking to people who were adults who were saying to me, "No, you don't understand. It really happened. This Blair Witch Project is some footage that they found, and it's amazing. You won't believe what happens to these people." And they flatly refused to believe that it was a work of fiction. Because it said on the screen these tapes were found. They believed it in the same way that people believe that Darren Brown does what he does via NLP and body language and psychology. Because they're told it, because they see it on the screen, they believe that the Blair Witch Project was real, and they were annoyed and offended when you told them otherwise, because again, it was taking away the magic.
Yeah, you shatter the illusion. Yeah, sorry, as I say, you shatter the illusion, and that is it. When you don't let people down gently when you do that. You just the official line comes out that it is actually not real, and bang, it's the bubbles burst, and
that's right.
They fall to the ground with a bump.
Although going back to this Star Wars thing, just very quickly, saying about the magic of the original Star Wars movies. I saw a film recently. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the recent Guardians of the Galaxy film, to me, really. Watching that, I was immersed in that as much as I was in the Star Wars film when I was a kid. So it is possible to recapture that magic. Yeah. And I think that Guardians of the Galaxy really did recapture that. If the new Star Wars films are anywhere near as good as Guardians of the Galaxy, they'll have done a good job.
I've not seen that, because when I saw it, when I saw it, I thought it was a real kiddies thing. Do you know what I mean? When I saw the trailer for it, so I wasn't sure. But a lot of people are saying it's quite a good film to watch. It's quite.
It is, yeah. I mean, my kids love it. My kids, we saw it twice in the pictures. We loved it so much, and then we've seen it a couple of times on DVD too. So the kids love it, but it's also, it's got enough there for the adults as well. Certainly,
definitely, yeah. And the thing is about this, the catching the magic of things, and having this sort of like, when you're a child, your imagination is there. When you watch things like the Hammer horror films and all this witchcraft, you believe that it's real. So it gives you that more of a feeling of, of fear, of excitement. And I find with magicians, although they're supposed to be the sort of the gateholders to making people feel like that, a lot of them are very dismissive or seem to destroy. There's this attitude there for atheism, science, and that kind of thing, and they tend to sort of want to discredit things, and reduce it to basically a magic trick. rather
I
than
think the trouble is with a lot of magicians is that there's a portion of the magic community that enjoy knowing the secrets and wanting to know the secrets and wanting to let everybody else know that they know the secrets, they know how things work, and because they're that kind of people, that doesn't contain itself to the magic that they're interested in. It pertains to all aspects of their life. So I'm sure they're, terrible bores down the pub when they're explaining to people how machines work, and they know how this works and they know how that works. And then they apply that mentality to things like perhaps religion or the New Age or psychics, and they want to. Everything has to have an explanation. Everything has to have a set of rules that they understand and they know how it works.
Yeah.
When it ain't always necessarily so.
No, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who enter especially the bizarre magic genre, who don't have the imagination and the ability to think out of the box in order to make a good go of it. They want to create a kind of a magical, mystical persona based, for example, on some Victorian type character, and then convey all these stories and do these tricks. But they're so wrapped up in the whole method of doing stuff and how other magicians perceive them that they can't pull it off. And a lot of them fall by the wayside. I mean, I've been in the game the best part of a decade now, like designing effects and putting stuff out there. And the amount of people who you just see come and go who, they're always emailing you saying, I've created this wonderful character who, does this and does that. And they send me photographs of themselves dressed up as Victorian gentlemen. And, they go out and they perform it for other magicians who don't get the whole bizarre element of the storytelling. They just want to see the trick at the end. They're not prepared to sit there for, best part of say half an hour listening to a story to be shown a really easy card trick at the end of it that's been dressed up as something else.
Yeah.
And because of that, and they're not performing for the general public, they just drop out of it and go back to doing, pick a card, any card, phone balls,
right.
And that type of stuff.
I've lectured for enough magic clubs and enough magic circles. Not the magic circle. Enough magic clubs and magic societies to know that the vast amount of people who join magic clubs and join magic societies are people who it is all about the secret. All they want to do is get together and swap secrets with each other. And it's nothing to do with, magic is probably the wrong word for it, because it has nothing to do with magic as we would perceive it, as we would think of it. It's just everything to do with knowing how a trick works. They shouldn't call it magic. They should call it tricks, because, that's all they're interested in, is how does this work? And once they know how it works, that's great. They've collected another secret.
They should call it deception mechanics or something.
Demonstrating magic.
Yeah, they should call it something like deception mechanics or something.
Well, some of them do. Some of them have these pretentious names on their cards. They say perception engineer. They put, what does he do? He's a magician, does card tricks. And it's like they seem to give themselves highfalutin. Yeah, the thing that annoys me the most is these people with steampunk hats. I hate steampunk hats. It's a hat with goggles attached to it. It looks stupid. It looks ridiculous. So they think that if you put a steampunk hat on and do a card trick with tarot cards, you're a bizarre magician. Creating wonder. And I saw this guy, and I won't mention his name, but there's a video of him, and he's basically a hacky magician, but he bought himself a steampunk hat, and overnight he becomes a bizarre magician. And he was doing this talk about how the power of the tarot, and how the tarot cards have got so much power themselves. But this whole thing convoluted. It's someone to take 4 cards from the top, put them to the bottom, think of a number, take those cards, divide it by 6, take that. And I think, hang on, if the tarot's got power, why have they got to do all that crap? Let the cards do. And it was just such a most dull, flat performance. But the steampunk hat, he thought that differentiated him from being a boring geek with cards to some master of the dark lord of the unknown, because he had a hat with goggles on it.
Well, you know what they say though, steampunk is for goths who prefer brown.
It is, definitely. But that's not like a modern invention. I mean, people are saying a Victorian. It's based on that, but the sort of hats, the stuff, the way it's designed, it's obviously an invention of somebody or an author of some kind.
Well, it goes back to there used to be a US TV series called Wild Wild West, and it was remade probably about 10 years ago now. That has those sort of elements of sort of clockwork inventions that could never work but being used, and of course things like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen have certain elements, but again, like many things, it's been taken and it's been bottled and sort of branded and sold back to the general public. So what at one time would have been quite a creative thing. Michael Moorcock is a great sci-fi writer who is often seen as the father of steampunk. But of course, a bit like the original punk, it starts off as a movement that is creative and is doing something new, but it soon gets bottled and condensed down to a set of rules and then sold back to people. And so in the same way that happened with the original punk in 1977, everybody starts looking like Sid Vicious. Now everybody involved with steampunk suddenly has a top hat with goggles attached. And it's what happens to creative movements, I'm afraid. It's like, go back to mod in the 1960s. Nowadays, people see a guy in a parka and that's a mod, which was, the original mods would turn their nose up at people walking around in bloody parkas. But it's what happens to creative movements is that they last about 6 months of being sort of genuinely, well, perhaps not 6 months, but a short period of time of being genuinely creative and innovative and creating something new, but then money becomes involved. People start branding it. Once it has a name attached to it, I think then it's when it starts being sold back to people and
definitely
turns from being something creative into something that's just used as a merchandising tool.
It was a hipster fad, really, because, with remember the cyberpunk came out. That was William Gibson, the author, invented it. That was when virtual reality came out. Everyone was a cyberpunk. This is so futuristic, and even Billy Idol did an album called Cyberpunk, I think. And there was a film Lawnmower Man came out, and
Blade Runner and all that type of stuff.
That's it, Blade Runner. Cyberpunk was the buzzword, and a lot of the hipsters jumped on the bandwagon. Hey, I'm a cyberpunk, and I think it's the same with the goggles that That's the latest thing as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of a fad, really, which hasn't got much longevity to it. And that's why it's starting to look dated now. When you see people buying these cyberpunk hats, particularly sort of bizarre magicians, it does look a bit like a uniform rather than someone using any creativity. Because when punk started, there's a lot of people making their own clothes, you had the Vivienne Westwood and they're making their own clothes, and it's like a unique thing. And then I remember CNA started selling punk trousers and punk T-shirts, and then it became a uniform, the same. There was no creativity left. It was just like a production line thing that everybody wore, rather than people creating their own mad outfits. And I think that's what these things are like. They're very much off the peg. Yeah,
they are. It's a shame it goes down that route, and I hate to say it, but I mean, a lot of steampunkers, or whatever you call them, I've met, have been really pretentious because they're so kind of, as you say, wrapped up in the scene, and there's you can't do this, and you have to wear this with that, and that doesn't go, and you must be reading this or doing this, and it just takes the whole enjoyment out of joining what essentially should be a creative movement with freedom in every direction.
It's like a cult or religion in the end, isn't it? Where there's strict rules. It's like a Jehovah's Witnesses, but with hats with goggles on.
But slightly less annoying.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. Because Jehovah's Steampunks could be the new thing. That's the thing you need to push next year, Jehovah's Steampunks.
Steam Witness.
Clockwork Watchtower magazines and stuff.
Clockwork Watchtower.
Clockwork. Anyway, so the link's already there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Excellent. Well, I think what we should do is now we should really have a look at a festive film that's got a bit of a spooky edge to it. What do you reckon?
Definitely.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Cool.
Oh, we got it! Hey, we got it! Say, we got it! Oh, we got it! So, we got it! Yo, we got it!
Right, welcome back to the Mystic Menagerie podcast. As it's the festive season, it wouldn't be a good show without discussing something suitably creepy. So we've been racking our brains to find a festive film that you wouldn't expect to be creepy, but actually the more you look into it, it is creepy. And we found the ideal one, haven't we, Freddie?
We have. This is the most spine-chilling film. If you watch it on your own late at 2 a.m. or something like that, it would leave you with a horrible feeling, wouldn't it?
It is. I saw it at the cinema, and it it left me feeling pretty cold, empty, and disturbed.
And Christmas films are supposed to have that warm glow when you come to cinema. You know, that feeling that everything's great in the world, this feeling of goodwill to all men. It shouldn't leave you making you feel like your blood has turned to ice.
No.
And the film we're talking about is The Polar Express.
Yes. Have you seen it, Paul?
I've seen it several times, yes. It is a film that I like to watch around Christmas time because it does have all those different elements. It's as you say, it's meant to be festive and Christmassy and warm, but the more you look at it and the more you analyse the story, the more disturbing it is. And also, some of the scenes from the film are quite scary and spooky as well.
They are. I mean, I think if you say to people if they've seen The Polar Express and it's creepy, they assume you're talking about the animation. And it was probably one of the first fully animated, computer animated films. And, you know, you can tell who the characters are. You can tell that, you know, the train driver's played by Tom Hanks. And he's been like, his face has been mapped and it's been reproduced in 3D graphics. And it is a little bit unnerving. I suppose it's a little bit like watching mannequins.
I think people, when it first came out, people said that they looked like they were all dead. And that's something that I've stuck in my mind, is every time I watch it, I think, you know, all these people are dead.
Yeah, they've got no character or expression. It's a bit like watching cutscenes on a sort of a Nintendo 64 computer game. You know, you know it. But I think the creepiness goes a lot deeper than that. And me and Freddie have been having a chat about certain theories about, you know, things in the film that we've noticed. And the one that Freddie came up with is the little boy who is the last stop on the Polar Express before it actually goes out to the North Pole. And he lives in that house, which is neither in the town or at the North Pole. It's like almost in a in-between zone. Do you want to go into it, Freddie, a bit more?
Yeah, and it's like and he doesn't seem to interact with people that much, does he? He seems to be there's something missing about the boy.
He's sick as well, isn't he? He's got a limp, so there's something wrong with him. Yeah. And
at the start, he's looking through like the door, watching what I assume is his sister, and the parents talking to the sister, but they're not coming in to see him. The thing is, it's Christmas, and they're putting the sister to bed. You think they'd put him to bed as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But he's looking through the door and watching this girl being put to bed, and Santa's coming soon, but no one's saying anything to him. And I think they explain it away in the film that, he's older and therefore, you know, he doesn't believe in Santa Claus. But the parents would still say to him, you know, go to sleep, it's Christmas in the morning, or they ignore him. And my theory, and I think Dan's with me in this one, is that the kid's dead and he's a ghost.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that he's got a limp is the last person on the track, on the actual stop of the train, and he's almost in between worlds. Is all the other kids have got on the train, they've been picked up by the Polar Express, but I think because he's got a sickness as well, he's got a limp, he's obviously like he's got an ailment. He probably died of something, but because he probably died around Christmas and he never got his presents, there's something keeping him from moving on, and it's the fact that he wants presents but doesn't get them because he's dead. So the Polar Express comes to get him, to take him to see Santa. So he eventually gets his present, so he can move on to the essentially, the spirit world or whatever. But if you watch it with that in mind, it actually does make sense.
Yeah, I think it would be. You could take it even deeper and say that all of the kids on the train are passing over, and essentially it's the train to heaven. It's taking these kids from limbo, that the whole town is limbo. And if you want to get out of limbo, you have to get on the train. You don't have to get on the train, but you're encouraged to get on the train, as that's the only way out of this limbo state. Yeah,
definitely.
Because there's a ghost on the train as well, isn't there? There's the ghost of the tramp who sits on the roof. Yeah,
and I think that is Tom Hanks as well. My interpretation was that the tramp is what the little boy could have become if he lost his belief, if he stopped believing in people and stopped believing in the magic, I suppose, that he could end up being a cynical old guy who ends up being this hard-nosed tramp riding the rails. But yeah.
Yeah, he's riding the rails of the spirit train. And it's got a real eerie feeling to it. It's like the whole sound of it, the whole thing's very echoey. And it's a bit like a weird dream you'd have as a kid, where everything's echoing, you go in this strange place, it's a very strange, surreal environment. And the elves, we've noticed, aren't very pleasant, are they? They're almost like they could turn at any minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all like little Joe Pesci's.
Devils,
They're like clones of Joe Pesci, but like loads and loads of them. They're all little gangsters.
Yeah.
And although they're sort of being friendly, they're like a vicious dog that could turn at any minute.
Yeah.
Tear your face off.
They do push the kids around a little bit, and don't they get thrown into the sack at one point or something? They get pushed, by the elves. So right. Yeah, they do get actually bullied by the elves a little bit when they get found in the village at the North Pole. And I love that version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town that the elves sing. That is very haunting and has that very eerie side to it as well.
Yeah, that reminded me of, again, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Where no, actually not. It was Close Encounters of the Third Kind where they go to the desert and there's that ship in the middle of the desert and they go over the hill and there's all of the sort of nomadic tribes people in the desert all chanting that sound.
Yes.
And all the elves
absolutely.
sound exactly like that in a kind
That's
of
right.
unison of like creepy tones. Yeah, it's odd. And as Freddie said, the whole, because the North Pole where they all live, the factory is empty because they've all gone to the town square.
Yeah.
It's like you get the feeling of it's cold and it's empty and it's, there's the record playing and you get there's the reverb on it and it's like it's on a loop, isn't it? I think one of the records is scratched and it's skipping.
Keep going back, yeah.
And it's weird, those people on the train, they're the hot chocolate, but the Tom Hanks. Yeah. They're really odd, aren't they? They're like animated corpses.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you look at their faces have no expression. They're all meant to be singing, and they're pouring hot chocolate, and they have no expression on the faces whatsoever, and they're all clones.
It's the Zombie Express.
Yeah, and then that song is really annoying. That song that he sings, and the reason why is because Holly had it, Mrs. on DVD one year, and she put it on sometimes you have a telly on at night when you're going to sleep, and put that film on for Christmas a few years ago. And it's one of those films that it doesn't go to the menu after it's played on DVD. It repeats itself. And that song kept waking me up every time that song. You got it.
Hot chocolate.
Kept waking me up. It was like
Hot chocolate.
In the morning, then I go back to sleep again. Then the film would live again. That morning, went, you got it. And it kept waking me up. And it irritated me so much. You know what I mean? That disturbs me as well. That song every time I hear it because of that.
And can you guys answer me a question? Did one of the kids on the train, the annoying kid who wants to know the answer to everything, wants to know who's he based on? Because it bugs me every time I watch it. There's some kid that used to be in films that character is based on, the sort of know-it-all kid who's really, bugs the conductor and wants to, he's trying to get Father Christmas or Santa Claus to give him the bell.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I don't know.
The glasses.
No.
Yes.
Has he got glasses? He has, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of the typical American movie stereotypes. Instead of you've got like,
I'm sure there's some kid that used to be in the movies that's based on.
Yeah, because they seem to always have baddies. The baddies are English, and there's always nearly. I mean, I'll watch a lot of children's films, and in the American films, they always put a ginger kid who's really horrible to other kids. It's always ginger, usually got braces. And a bit of an outcast, and if you look at A Christmas Story, the American one, there's I think it's Carl Fargus. He's got ginger hair and braces. I think in the Cat in the Hat the movie, there's a fat kid with ginger hair who's really annoying that everyone hates.
Yes.
And he for me is just the typical. Okay, we need to put an annoying kid in this film that no one's going to like. Oh no, let's make him ginger, give him glasses. And a really horrible voice, and bingo, you've got him straight away.
Yeah. That's enough. He does remind me of somebody. Like I say, like Paul said, I can't think who. It's that voice, hey buddy, really annoying, sort of like irritating.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And I think it may even be like a more older person. I'm sure there's someone like that in American Graffiti a bit. In these kind of 50s films, I've seen someone like that who tries to hang out with everybody all the time. He's one that they can't get rid of. They try to do something.
It's almost Pee Wee Herman, but it's not. I can't think.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we'll have to have a think. We'll have to maybe come back on that one and do a bit of research.
Yeah, or maybe people on the Facebook page, if they have any ideas who that annoying kid from Polar Express is actually like in real life, post a picture of the person you think he's like most, which actor he reminds you of, what character he reminds you of. Because he is like somebody.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, the train as well, if you think about what the train's carrying, obviously it's got all these kids who are no longer believers in Santa Claus, who are possibly dead as well. And there's also a whole carriage devoted to disused and broken children's toys that are going back to be recycled. So they're toys from Christmas past. They've been forgotten about and destroyed that no one wants anymore. And it's almost like the kids are like that as well, and they're all on a one-way journey to enlightenment.
I mean, metaphor-wise, I mean, you could even have like when people say like the religious things within E.T., you know, about the resurrection, how he comes back to life and he comes from the stars. You know, he's based on Jesus. In RoboCop, like a rebirth there. You know, and there could always be people there could be metaphor people that are non-Christians. Yeah, you know, and it's trying to get their belief to get into heaven. Yeah, with Hollywood, you never know what they're trying to put in your mind.
Well, isn't Polar Express based on a book? Wasn't there a book originally that the film is based upon? I have a feeling that there was a book, The Polar Express, that they then turned into the film.
Ah, right. Maybe.
Right. Maybe that was it could be like a religious metaphor, even though they could be using it as a metaphor. I'll find out about that. But it's a very strange... it's a very strange film altogether. The sound of it, the look of it, the feel of it, the story.
It is.
Yeah, perfect in every way.
Yeah, definitely. Sinister. I mean, there's not many sinister Christmas. The one I was mentioning to Dan earlier on is there's this thing out with Jack Frost. Did you ever see that, Paul?
I haven't seen Jack Frost. I've heard some horrific reports about Jack Frost.
There's two films.
It sort of made me not want to watch it because of...
You should really. There's two Jack Frost, right? They both got exactly the same name and they've got exactly the same concept, right? Except they're one's for kids and one's for adults, and they're both as creepy as each other. I mean, the kids one is about this. I can't remember who plays him now. It's some actor, you know, who's in other stuff. Michael Keaton, that's him. Yeah, he's in it, and basically he's a father, and he has to travel away. It's snowing at Christmas, and he says to his son, "If I'm not near you, play with this harmonica." He gives him like a toy harmonica, and I'll always be with you. You know, and of course, driving home for Christmas, you know, he's not as good as Chris Rea. He doesn't get there. He has an accident. He dies. So the kid plays the harmonica, and he comes back to life as a snowman. So it's quite creepy that his dad's spirit has entered this snowman's body, and it's an animated snowman, like a puppet thing, but it's got quite an evil face, you know, and they have antics together, go sledding and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's quite a mad film, and it's quite a sinister side to it, really. Do you know what I mean? With this snowman inhabits his kid's body. That's for kids. That's scary enough. Yeah. But a film came called Jack Frost, which is the same story. The cover looks almost the same. You look on Amazon, they're both on there. And this one's the same story, but it's a serial killer. It's been transported from one prison to another. And the car he's in, or coach thing, whatever it is, you know, the van, overturns and he dies. And he inhabits, like Chucky, he inhabits the spirit of the snowman and goes on a murder spree. And this Jack Frost snowman looks the same as the one in the kids' film, but he's got sharp teeth. so you could kids, what film do you want to watch for Christmas? You know, I'll leave them alone with that for a few hours. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you get the wrong Jack Frost, I mean, they're both.
That's right. Put the wrong DVD on. Yeah.
And the way they find out on the adult version, the way of actually defeating Jack Frost is actually throwing hot porridge at him. Is it? Well, the Americans call it oatmeal, don't they? So they throw oatmeal at him, and they throw oatmeal at him, and he starts melting. So that's about as I watched a bit this morning at Freddie's recommendation, and I had to turn it off.
It is really, really, really unbelievable. You know what I mean? I mean, the kids one alone, when that came out, I saw that. I thought, that's a bit odd for kids. You know what I mean? It's a bit creepy, like this dead father inhabiting a body. You know, but then they brought this adult version out, which is more of a skeletal looking face. And I don't know if it's the same producers or anything, but it's the covers look very similar.
Yeah. It is disturbing, and as a parent, if you were to buy the wrong one, stick it in the DVD player and go into the other room, I think the kids might be a bit. Doesn't he rape someone? He rapes a woman at some point with his carrot nose.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, the adult one.
The adult one, I should hope so.
Sounds like something out of one of your books, Paul.
Well, since they're both quite much for muchness, it could have been either, you know.
Daddy, what are you doing with that lady?
There could be some room for lesbian snow women.
Yeah,
so lesbian snow vampires.
That's one. Yeah, but that's a crazy concept. And the fact that you know, it's kind of well known as a children's film with a major sort of actor in it, and they brought out a horror version where it could be mistaken. Yeah, you know, I thought there'd be a lawsuit or someone would sue them or say it's too similar or something like this.
I think the name Jack Frost is probably public in the public domain. I mean, I imagine that you cannot copyright something Jack Frost. I imagine that it's because it's part of folklore and history. You can't claim ownership of it any more than somebody could, trademark Santa Claus or Father Christmas
or Jack the Ripper, even. Yeah, Jack the Ripper's.
But the stories are so similar. Do you know what I mean? And the cover design is not radically different. But I mean, they're both. I think they're probably the kids one made me more creepier in some ways than the adult version, because you know what to expect the adult version, but the creepy one is supposed to be nice and heartwarming, and it's not.
No.
It's just sinister.
I mean, here's one, Paul, that you may not have heard of. Freddie hadn't heard of it till this morning, but it's not a Christmas film, but as it's Disney, and Disney is a time for, you get an influx of Disney stuff at Christmas. Have you ever heard of The Watcher in the Woods?
No, I haven't. No, well, I'm surprised. No, I haven't heard of it.
It's dubbed as the film that Disney tries to forget because it was so scary. And I think if you can just go and, I think you can probably watch it on YouTube now.
Yeah.
But it is literally, it's a children's version of almost like The Evil Dead. A girl basically goes missing. They perform a ritual at the summer solstice, and she gets sucked into some sort of portal and becomes like an almost like invisible spirit in the woods.
Right.
The whole film is basically her pursuing people, but from a camera's perspective, in exactly the same shot as The Evil Dead, when you've got the spirit from the Necronomicon is released, and it kind of chases them through the woods. It's pretty much that all the way through, with these girls being pestered by this spirit who writes in reverse on on misty windows, and
wow.
it is creepy. There's an alternate ending that they actually had to get rid of because it would have pushed it into sort of the 15 certificate bracket, and where they bring out this alien, which was meant to be the creature that sort of took her into this other dimension, and it's a cross between a giant insect and the Predator. And this is a Disney film, but if you go on and just you can look at the Wikipedia, The Watcher in the Woods. I think
I'll look that up.
May even be on Netflix. It probably doesn't stand up much now, but if you think about watching it in sort of the 80s as a 9-year-old kid, and your parents have got it out on Betamax for you to watch at the weekend, and again left you in the living room to watch it, and they came back, and me and my sister were petrified. My sister still gets scared by it now.
Really? Wow. So
Disney, I think the Polar Express is a Disney Pixar. So even though Disney do have the ability to fluff things up a bit, they had the ability to still essentially scare the crap out of people, but unintentionally, I think. That's the main thing.
Yes.
They don't go out of their way to do it, but they can do it. When they don't try. Cool.
I mean, there's some really, I say, creepy stuff that comes out. I don't know whether that's intended to be creepy. I mean, that Watch in the Woods, I mean, I think the intention is there to be like one of these sort of horror for kids. You used to get a lot of them in the 70s, that were horror, and some of that is quite disturbing now. And but I don't think it's meant to sort of frighten the life out of kids, but it does. In the same way that the Polar Express, I don't think that's meant to be creepy. It's supposed to be heartwarming. Yeah,
there's one bit where the girl falls into this pond, and it looks like she's drowning. And this old lady, who's the creepy old lady that all the villagers say, she's a witch or whatever, she actually comes with a branch. And you see from the girl's perspective under the water, this old lady pinning her down with a branch and pushing her under. But what she's actually doing is she's rescuing the girl. She's actually pushing her down further to get her out from the grips of these roots on this tree.
Right.
But it just, for about 5 minutes, it's basically an old lady pushing a 5-year-old girl underwater with a branch off a tree. Which is, if you flick to that point in the film... if you were,
oh my God, what am I watching?
If you were channel surfing and you went on the Kiddies Disney's channel and put that on, it'd be like, whoa, what the hell is this?
I mean, the old lady's really creepy in it, isn't she?
Yeah, she's quite famous. It's Bet Day, is it? Not Betty Davis, is it? Maybe.
I don't know. Might be actually. Yeah, she was in what's that thing that she was in the Nanny? That's a Hammer one. She was in the black and white one.
I think it's her. Yeah, and
is it?
Yeah, it's filmed in England as well, so it has got the I think they must have thought, Disney must have thought, we can't make a creepy film unless we go to England.
Yes.
And film it in autumn.
Yeah, definitely the best place, Creepy Forest, and it is a strange film. You know, there's some really weird stuff. And like we were saying before, like with the Beach Boys last month, it's like some of the weirdest things come from the places you least expect. You know, some things that you seem that be quite mainstream can produce some of the weirdest things, including Disney.
Yeah, it's definitely worth. I mean, all of those films are definitely worth whoever, for listeners to go back and have a look at it now they've listened to our perspective on things. It might be interesting for them to go back and review the films and look at it with a different perspective.
Different eyes,
different eyes.
And talking of films, Paul, I'd like to ask you, if your book, Katie Bell, Victorian Vampire, if that was made into a film, say someone said to you, like Hollywood said, okay, Mr. Voudini, we want to make a film of your book. Which director do you want? You had the choice of anybody in the world. Who would you have?
Oh, God, I don't know. At one time, I would have said Tim Burton, but I wouldn't say that anymore. He certainly seems to be off his game lately. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think who I would like to direct. Probably Del Toro, I would have thought, because that would just be awesome. So yes, I'll go with Del Toro.
And who would you cast if you were sitting there like J.K. Rowling in a chair with your name on the back, and you had a list of people you wanted to bring in to cast for the film? Who is your main people you want to cast? So your top 3 people.
Who anybody would do. It would be great to have, I don't know, let's say Keira Knightley. Why not? Let's have Keira Knightley in one of the roles. Who else could we have? I suppose we could have Emma Watson in.
Here we go. We're digging into Paul's fantasy world now.
Yes. So far, we've got Keira Knightley and Emma Watson as lesbian lovers in Whitechapel.
He's not thought about that before.
Yes. I'm sat here going, who can I cast? Knowing full well in my head who played the roles for many years now in my own imagination. But of course, if Hollywood came and said they want to make a film, I would just go, yeah, sure, okay. It would be nice to have some artistic control. But I'm not naive enough to think that not everybody is just artistic control. I'd like to sit in on that scene if that's okay. It might be a close set, but it's not close to me. But yeah, it would be a dream come true. But what I'd really love, of course, having Katie Bell publish as a book for a start, from a publishing house would be fantastic. Having it turned into a film would be just unbelievable. But what I really want is for it to be turned into a musical, a stage musical with music by Phil Spector. I've got it all planned out in my head. If there's any theatrical groups out there who want to turn it into a musical, I've got it. It's all mapped out in my brain, and it's all got music from the Phil Spector, sort of the classic golden Phil Spector tracks.
You could have him by Skype, couldn't you? Skype only with him, I think, these days.
Is it? Yes, Phil Spector. Yes. We don't need permission to use his music. We don't need any other input from him.
I probably know where you could get your book turned into a film, but the soundtrack might be slightly.
Back to the wah wah.
It'd have a few wah wah guitars in it, and I think the Californian or the Los Angeles porn industry could probably
yes, crying out for Victorian lesbians.
Bend over in.
But no, I mean, if the BBC can produce Tipping the Velvet for mainstream 9:00 Sunday evening viewing, we can do Victorian vampires as well.
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt.
They could easily add an element of that into the next season of Penny Dreadful, surely. Again, if the producers of Penny Dreadful are listening in and they need a writer, to give some extra perception to their script, then I'm sat here waiting. I have scripts ready. I'm sure
I have stories ready.
Eva Green would be up for some lesbian action, no doubt.
Yeah, I think we'd all be up to seeing that.
Or even if the writers of EastEnders are listening and they want to turn it into like some East End modern vampires, I'm sure Paul could help out there too.
Any writing jobs, I'm sat here, I have stories ready, waiting to go. Do I feel like I'm begging? Does it sound that desperate? But, anybody out there needs a writer. I write.
This might be the first show we actually get complaints. We've covered lesbians, gollywogs, and what else have we got?
Serial killer snowmen.
And what's
everyone was dead in the Polar Express.
And snowman rape. You don't get that in. You don't get that in many podcasts.
Don't get that in many podcasts. No, definitely not. And it's always just something for the listeners. Actually, we talk about creepy music each month or a song that's disturbing. And I'll briefly mention a song. Have any of you two heard the album Tilt by Scott Walker?
I haven't.
No.
The Walker Brothers, very good 60s acts. The sun ain't gonna shine anymore, that kind of stuff. Very nice melodramatic pop stuff, but backrack songs. But his solo stuff now is a lot different from it was then. And what I'd like listeners to do is to hear some creepy music. Go on YouTube. There's a song will be on there called "The Cockfighter" from the album Till. To put it on headphones, and because it's quite quiet, turn it up to full blast, as loud as you can, and listen to 7 minutes of that about 2 a.m. on headphones, and let me know how you get on.
Cool.
It's the most horrifying piece of music you'll ever hear in your life.
Excellent. After, definitely we'll come back and have a chat about that one after a few people have listened to it.
Definitely, and comments on the Facebook page, how it made you feel will be interesting as well.
Exorcism is only the beginning of Exorcism's Daughter. You actually see an exorcism, then you witness the results. When there's no place left to go, you can always go mad. Welcome to the House of Insane Women, the only place left to go when you're Exorcism's Daughter. Exorcism's Daughter. Exorcism's Daughter.
Welcome back to the Mystic Menagerie podcast. It's time for our regular feature, the Paranormal Corner. And as usual, we're keeping it festive, and we thought it'd be interesting to look at real Santa Claus sightings. So, are you familiar with these, Paul or Freddie?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I've a couple of stories of my own as well that I'll interject with as we go along. Okay,
cool. What you may have seen Santa Claus yourself, type thing.
Well, first of all, when I was, what age would I be? Probably about 8 years old. I have a very, very vivid memory of it being Christmas Eve. And throughout my life, Christmas Eve has always been the greatest day of the year. There's something sort of magical about Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas. It was always my favourite day. I always used to prefer Christmas Eve to Christmas Day because of the sense of expectation and the sort of what's going to happen, what presents you're going to get. It always had a sort of a unique, magical vibe to it. And so Christmas Eve was always my favourite day. And going to bed on Christmas Eve, waiting for Father Christmas to visit during the night, I must have woken up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. It might have been a bit earlier, about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And I staggered out onto the landing of the house I'd shared with my parents and my sister. And my mum was coming upstairs. And I obviously disturbed her. And she said to me, "What are you doing? What are you doing up? He's here. He's here." So talking about Father Christmas, and I absolutely freaked, ran back into my bedroom, jumped under my bed sheets, and I heard the presents being put in my bedroom and the rustling, and it in a way, it was a similar feeling to if you'd seen a serial killer or a demon in your house and you were hiding under the bed sheets. I was hiding under the bed sheets because Father Christmas was in my bedroom. And not only was he in my bedroom, I could hear him unloading the toys and putting them in what we used to have a pillowcase for putting the presents in. I could actually hear the rustling of the wrapping paper. Now, of course, we all know what was really going on and who was putting the presents in my bedroom. But as a sort of 8-year-old kid, it was just that it was on the one hand it was amazing, and I was thinking, oh my God, he's in my room. On the other hand, it was also terrifying. I was absolutely terrified, and I hid under the covers all night long until I dared look to see if Father Christmas had gone again, had he left.
Yeah.
So that was for me at the time. It was very real and a real sort of authentication of my belief in Father Christmas.
Yeah, so it's almost like you're sort of the feeling of him being there was enough to reinforce the fact that it was real.
Absolutely.
But there's actually some actual recorded, visual sightings of Santa Claus himself, which are quite odd, and they all kind of follow, as you would expect, a very similar line of, the story is very similar. And it is essentially like your story, where the kids have got out of bed, but they've actually sort of heard someone downstairs, and they've looked and peeked over the balcony, and they've actually seen a fat chap in red. In a lot of actual cases, he turns round and looks almost blankly at them, almost as if some people report that he's actually looking into their soul. He doesn't smile or anything. He's just got a very blank look, looks at them, and then continues, putting presents out, and then vanishes. Other people have actually seen a sleigh with reindeer on top of a roof, or actual sightings of the sleigh and the reindeer flying around. And the people that have seen them as well, they're not all 6, 7 or 8 year old kids. The bulk of the actual sightings all come from around 10 to 12 year old kids, which is strange, because this is the sort of age where your belief in Santa Claus is either completely gone, or it is, it's definitely questionable. And me and Freddie just thought it was odd. This is the same age as the kids on the Polar Express as well. They're about 10 years old. Yeah. And it's just odd that it's mainly that age who are subject to the sightings of supposedly like the real Santa Claus sightings.
Definitely. I've got some of them here. Sorry, I've got some of them here as well. Actually, there's some of them people in their teens. Yeah. When they see it. There's one. I'll read this one out quickly. This one Christmas Eve about 35 years ago. It's about 1973. While I was in my teens, I was in the car with my parents travelling home very late at night. We were talking the whole way about Santa Claus and how great it would be if he really did exist. As we pulled in the driveway of our house, there he was, tiptoeing in the snow between two houses across the street. We all laughed when we saw this. Remember this, and for many Christmases thereafter, no robberies were reported. So that's a kid with his parents when he sees him. Yeah. It's just odd.
Yeah, I think there are spooky ones where they've actually seen someone either materialise or disappear, with lots of reports of this blank expression. I think one thing that made it stand out to me is the fact that all the sightings, they always see a jolly fat man in a red suit, and we all know that the red Santa Claus was invented by the Coca-Cola company, wasn't it? It was either white or green before that. So obviously it isn't like a real Santa Claus from the past, because he wouldn't be dressed like that for a start. It's almost like saying you've seen a fairy and it looks exactly like the Tinkerbell fairy from Peter Pan. Because obviously with it being in red, it's a modern representation of an old tradition. But it did get me thinking about the idea of a tulpa, which is it's like a collective thought form. It's essentially, a tulpa is something that has sort of Tibetan origin, and the monks would meditate for sometimes up to 6 weeks and create their own familiar, like a witch's familiar. And they'd meditate for so long that they'd actually this sort of the meditation and the thinking of this creature would actually make it materialize and manifest itself as a physical thing. I don't know, have you ever come across the like tulpas or anything like that before when you've been looking for things for your books?
Not really. It's not something I've sort of investigated or read very deeply into, but a couple of things strike me. The first one is that perhaps the sightings are a physical manifestation of internal conflict within the person, who perhaps is on the cusp of believing, not believing, and there's this internal subconscious battle between the part of the subconscious that holds on to the belief and the part of the subconscious that has lost the belief, and in some way the conscious mind interprets this and projects this vision that people see as a sort of physical representation of this internal subconscious struggle between belief and non-belief. And I'm also reminded of, I can't remember the exact name of it now, but there was the seance, perhaps Freddie will remember, the seance experiment that was conducted where they held a seance for somebody who they created, an imaginary person, that as an experiment, at some university in America, they held a seance. They all decided upon an imaginary name. I think it was Peter for this person. They off the top of their head, they gave him a job that he used to do, an age when he died, what colour hair he had, etc., etc. A completely fictional character, and then they held a seance for him. And on the Ouija board, Peter came through and talked to them and said, "My name is Peter. I died at this age. I did this for a living," etc. That was exactly the same as the attributes they decided upon before they held a seance. And of course, the discussion were they just subconsciously relaying the information they'd all decided upon, or had they subconsciously created an entity, created a spirit when they held a seance?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like when you get people who are struggling with their faith, say Christians who are, for some reason, questioning their belief in God, and it's always like, well, give me a sign, and then they take the first thing that happens that's slightly out of the ordinary as a potential sign that he does exist.
That's right.
Which can be anything from, the sun will come out from behind the clouds, or a car swerves, almost hits them and hits a tree instead. But it's
yeah.
So
the human mind is an amazing, it goes without saying, really. The human mind is an amazing thing, and it can play tricks with you. It really can.
Definitely. Have you heard about the Halifax slasher?
No.
It's in the 1930s. It's a town in Halifax, in England, 1938. For about a week long, women claimed to be attacked by this mysterious bloke with a mallet and bright buckles on his shoes.
Right.
Oh, yes, it rings a bell now.
Do you remember that? Loads of attacks, and there's loads of attacks, and in this, he had a knife or a razor, there's different things for a whole week. And Scotland Yard came in to assist the police down there. And when they found one of the alleged victims, they found that they actually inflicted the damage upon themselves for attention.
Yeah.
And others soon started to admit they'd done the same thing. They'd slashed themselves for attention.
Yeah. It's something my kids were telling me about a few months ago, that something that I'd never heard of. But apparently it was going around the schools of Yorkshire and probably beyond like wildfire, was the story of Slender Man.
Yes, Slender Man,
yeah. And I knew nothing about it, but apparently all the kids know about Slender Man. He stands outside your bedroom window looking at you, doesn't say anything, just this very thin man. And I thought it was amazing that, and kids come to school saying they've seen Slender Man. And I thought it was amazing that in this high-tech age, that it was still possible for urban myths like that to happen and to be passed among the kids without the adults knowing anything about it.
Yeah, well, there is an article on the Slender Man that I read that did bring up the concept of the tulpa, and that is that if a certain amount of people believe in something and put that much passion into believing something, it actually manifests itself for real until the belief subsides. So, for example, with the Father Christmas sightings, okay, Santa Claus himself doesn't exist. However, if you've got millions and millions of children believing in this, they all know what to believe in, what he looks like and what he does. They all project that energy and create almost an actual physical apparition that does go about, for example, going down people's chimneys and, materialising in places and doing things.
Yeah.
You just got to be in the right place at the right time to see it. And of course, Christmas Day comes, Boxing Day, Christmas is over. They all forget about him. And of course, it isn't feeding off any energy anymore. And he just dies again. And it almost like a poltergeist in a way, that feeds off potentially the energy of prepubescent teenage girls who've got far too much sort of psychic energy and don't know how to channel it. It just manifests itself as a ball of energy that creates a personality and causes a whole lot of trouble. And maybe this is what these Santa sightings are. I don't know.
It's strange because like these things that people, if they sort of hear about it, even like a fictional thing, they start to believe it's real and see it. It's like that Slender Man. It came from a website called somethingawful.com. I don't know if you've heard about this before. And they sort of create urban myths up, like stories and stuff like that. And these things spread around the internet like wildfire. And then they become gospel, they become facts. It's like there's this Russian experiment supposedly happened where they starve people in a room and they sound like creatures, like zombie type things.
Oh, yes, I've seen that one, yes.
You've seen that? Yeah, that started off the same website, I think. I think it's somethingawful.com. And of course, people sort of post this and then other websites take the story and it spreads. And Slender Man, I think, started from that. And it starts out with these stories, like these urban myths, and people pick up on them and they start seeing them. So kids are seeing this thing, even though it's created by this website. They start seeing it themselves because the story is so powerful that the mind actually conjures it. And Santa Claus is a very powerful thing for a child, anyway.
It is. It's one of the most powerful things. I mean, you say to a child nowadays, what does Christmas represent? It's Santa Claus. Unless they come from a religious family, they're not going to say it's to do with Jesus or whatever. It's literally to do with it's Father Christmas, and that's who it revolves around.
Definitely, and that's quite a powerful thing in your child. I mean, the fact is that you believe it because you want it to be real, and I suppose confirming it in your mind. If you start to lose your faith, like these kids are about 7 or 8 or to 10, when they start to see these Santa Claus sightings, they're probably losing their belief a bit in it and want to prove it to themselves.
Yeah,
and that's probably why their mind is sort of playing tricks on themselves to try and prove that it's real. To try to show them it's real.
I think there's definitely some psychological grounding or evidence in that. I mean, if you get a lot of religious people who go to a place where there's a statue of the Virgin Mary, for example, and they make a pilgrimage there, and there's hundreds of them there all looking at this statue, and all of a sudden it starts to cry blood, for example, is that a manifestation of their wanting to see that happen, or is it something that happens because it was the Virgin Mary existed? I think it's probably the previous one where they go there and they want to see it that much that the amount of energy they're focusing on that statue actually makes it materialize and happen through the power of the mind.
Absolutely. And it ties in with the whole seance thing, isn't it? When people go to a seance, they go with a sense of expectation. They want things to happen, and lo and behold, when you turn out the lights and you hold hands, things start to happen. It's exactly the same thing that's going on.
It is. I mean, if you look at there's a famous tulpa story involved a French-Belgian explorer called Alexandra David Neal, and she actually became one of the first Western people to become a fully sort of indoctrinated Tibetan monk. And she actually created her own tulpa, and it took about 6 weeks of meditation. And she created she basically said, her own words were, "I've created my own hallucination." And it was a physical creature that would assist her in her day-to-day work. It would carry things for her. It's basically like something straight out of Harry Potter, like with the owl and the rat. However, what happened is this thing, whatever she created, actually started to get its own sense of its surroundings. It started developing its own personality, and it became quite violent. And it would slap her around a bit, and give her all sorts of grief, to the point where she actually had to destroy it in the end. Wow! And it's like what happens if these things are real? If someone's created a tulpa and it just gets loose and buggers off, what does it become? Where does it go? What does it do? It's obviously got to feed off energy in order to maintain its existence. A bit like, I suppose, going back to fairy folklore. Fairies 500-600 years ago were part of normal, popular culture because everyone believed in them. People saw them, people experienced them. No one believes in them anymore. They're just laughed at. Therefore, they don't exist anymore. So, there's definitely a lot of mileage in the whole thought form concept, I think.
Yes.
I think me and Freddie were talking about maybe doing a sort of a bizarre routine you could base around the whole thing. Yes,
it would be very, very interesting, and it has a lot of potential for bizarre routines, themes for seances, etc. You could certainly have a group of people gather one evening in a room and decide for themselves who they were going to manifest, and actually work towards manifesting it and making it happen.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. It's very similar to Frankenstein, the whole tulpa thing, isn't it? Creating this creature.
It is. Yeah, it's a great sort of analogy. Yeah.
And it goes off into the world on its own and starts causing chaos. It's the same thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, you create something from nothing, and it goes ape.
Yeah, Bride of Tulpa. Bride of Tulpa, that's what you need.
Yeah. Tulpa goes ape.
Tulpa's gone ape.
Tulpa's gone ape, yeah. That sounds like a good 1950s B-movie film, doesn't it? Tulpa's gone ape.
Yes.
Oh, good name for a band, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of a bizarre routine. You could do a whole audience participation thing where you get everyone in the audience to, as a group, you all, like the seance experiment, is to sit around, create a character, what he or she does, what they do, what they look like, and all this type of stuff, and get the whole audience to potentially create something. I mean, if it's part of a bizarre routine, you could give them cues so they create something which you've already got control of.
Yes.
And then you could throw in some like PK touches type routine in there, so it actually physically touches someone, or is able to select something or manifest itself in some way. There's
you simply could get around a group of people, create a Tulpa together as a group thing. Someone decides this, someone decides that, create this entity. Join with a group of people, and then to get this come through the Ouija board.
Yeah.
And talk with it. You could do that quite easily, I should think.
Yeah, it'd be good. It's almost a good grounding as well for a good story, or a good sort of old-fashioned ghost story, if you like. Could create it, and it's not like a Ouija board when you just basically ask it to go in peace, because obviously a Ouija board is tapping into the spirit world. But if you've created something yourself that you're contacting with, it's not as easy to say, well, you got to go back to where you came from now, because where it came from is yourself. So it's just going to hang around, and it's going to get a bit pissed off.
What if he decides not to go back?
Exactly. And it follows one home. And then then the whole audience draws straws to see who the tulpa's going to go home with, and make them crash the car on the way home.
that creature is in Jewish culture, in Jewish mythology, I think. It's like a golem type. Yeah, it's made out of mud, isn't it? And stuff.
Yeah, the golem from Czech legend.
That's it,
Yeah, where it's created out of clay, and you would write down what you wanted it to do on a piece of paper and put it in its mouth.
That's right.
And then that would enable it to go away and do your bidding, essentially. So you could get it to go and kill people, or, and I think that's in the Czech legend, that's what it did.
That's right,
He created it in a synagogue out of clay, and then it would go off and kill people. And the Golem of Prague is quite a well-known, thing. It's a legend. It's obviously, like anything old, it's a legend, but, there's... Looking at even modern day Santa sightings and sightings of all sorts of things, even ghosts, you could basically put it down to things that are created by the human mind and are still residual energy floating around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something that's been quite featured in films before, isn't it? I think that's in the TV program. The X-Files had an episode about that. So these sort of things are quite strong in folklore.
Yes, they are. Yeah, it's just. You can almost put that concept and paint it onto any form of paranormal occurrence, from Bigfoot sightings to UFOs, aliens, ghosts. If enough people believe about it and create it, and it's out there, and as yourself, if you're a believer, or even if you're not a believer, you might just be open to any sort of open to that type of thing, and you see it. There may be loads of things roaming around out there that we've created with our minds that now and again like to make an appearance.
Yeah, One Direction.
Yeah,
a mass hallucination of teenage girls.
Yeah, well, yeah. Geez, that's definitely one mass hallucination that needs some medical attention, I think.
This is a disaster. Look, I just saw something that doesn't belong in this world, and it's out there killing my friends. Now tell me what it is. Jack Frost.
And we come to the end of another podcast, our fourth one. So it's the last one of 2014. So next time that we'll be with you, you'll be spending time with us, will be in 2015. So, from Dan and myself, I'd like to wish you a happy new year.
Yeah.
And thanks for all the support that you have given us this year, and keep listening to the show. And we appreciate your comments and your support. And I'd like to thank Mr. Paul Voudini. A big thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Are you still there?
I'm still here.
He's fallen asleep in his coffin.
Not once for yes, twice for no.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul, for being on the show. It's been really great having you on.
Yeah, thanks,
That's
Paul.
been a pleasure. No, really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
You just got to make. How are you going to get home now from the Mystic Menagerie Mansion? Are you going to stay the night, or are you going to?
I was thinking I was going to phone a taxi, but I don't know. Do they come out this time of night?
You can only get a taxi when the tide's out. So now the tide's in, you're stranded. I'm afraid.
I'll just if you just nail down the lid of this coffin, and I'll just spend the night in here. And if you exhume me in the morning with some bacon and eggs, I'll be as happy as Larry.
Okay,
fantastic. Cool. We shall do that, Paul. And it's been lovely having you here.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. It's been great.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent. And so, from myself and Dan, we'd like to say thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. See you in 2015.
See you in 2015. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, we got it. Hey, we got it. Johnny, we got it. Oh, we got it. So